Chapter 34:30. He was furious. He could not agree to any of the three conditions the god-slaying imperial ancestor had proposed. It was complete nonsense. Goodbye, god-slaying. Blood Abyss imperial ancestor did not stay because he was afraid that if he stayed, he would attack. I won't see you off. The god-slaying imperial ancestor sneered as he watched the imperial ancestor leave. He wanted him to attack, but was not willing to pay the price. Did he think he was a fool? Blood Nether Peak. Blood Abyss's angry roar resounded throughout the peak. The god-slaying imperial ancestor was so shameless that he wanted to take advantage of the situation. He used killing Longao as an excuse to propose such a shameless condition. If he really agreed, then he would really be a fool. That's the only way. Since he could not invite the god-slaying imperial ancestor, he could only choose another path, which was to invite all the intermediate and primary imperial ancestors to deal with Longao together. The next day, Imperial Ancestor Skybreaker, Imperial Ancestor Yaoji, Imperial Ancestor Purple Blood, Imperial Ancestor Yin Yang, Imperial Ancestor Devourer, Imperial Ancestor Shrouding, and Imperial Ancestor Slaughtering, 7 intermediate Imperial Ancestors. Imperial Ancestor Splitter, Imperial Ancestor Wu Qing, Imperial Ancestor Xiaoyao, Imperial Ancestor Xiantian, 5 primary Imperial Ancestors. A total of 12 Imperial Ancestors gathered at Blood Nether Peak. The ethereal Imperial Ancestor had entered the cycle of reincarnation. Before the reincarnation was complete, there were no longer 18 Imperial Ancestors in the chaotic space, but 17. Except for the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor, the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor, and Imperial Ancestor Shenwu. The rest of the Imperial Ancestors had all arrived. Inside the Grand Hall, looking at the 12 Imperial Ancestors below, Blood Abyss said with a smile, "I'm sure everyone knows why I've invited you here." Everyone just smiled and did not say anything. Before coming, the 12 of them already knew why the Imperial Ancestor had invited them. The 5 Imperial Ancestors did not care, but the others were extremely annoyed. Especially the 5 primary Imperial Ancestors. They knew very well what it meant to deal with Longao. Longao had forced the 5 intermediate Imperial Ancestors to retreat with one sword. It was almost a matter of minutes to kill them. However, no one dared to disrespect the Imperial Ancestor. Disrespect? They were courting death. But you have to know, the Blood Underworld Imperial Ancestor was one of the 2 high-level Tao confirming Imperial Ancestors in the Primal Chaos space. It would be very easy to kill them. Because of this, no one dared to refuse the Blood Underworld Imperial Ancestor's invitation. Since everyone is here, I won't waste any more words. How about we join forces to kill Longao? No problem. Since things had already come to this, no one dared to object. Just as everyone reached an agreement, a dragon's roar reverberated through the entire hall. Boom! A sharp sword formed by the Origin Force slashed forward. However, the 13 martial emperors managed to resist the attack with ease. Who is it? Come out if you dare. In fact, everyone had already guessed that there were only a few people in the entire Primal Chaos realm who would dare to do such a thing. As for the 3 who did not come, they would not do such a thing. The Ethereal Kingdom's royal ancestor had already entered the cycle of reincarnation. Only Longao was left. Longao, come out if you dare. Why do you have to be so sneaky? The Blood Underworld Imperial Ancestor's face was dark. He had not expected Longao to dare to come. There were 13 Tao confirming Imperial Ancestors here. Other than the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor, even the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor would not dare to provoke all of them. Longao's figure had already left. However, a black light had already formed into a figure. It was none other than the image of Longao. Blood Underworld and everyone else, it's been a long time. How have you been? Everyone stood up and glared at the image before them coldly. Of course, everyone knew that Longao had already left. What they saw was just an image. Even if they destroyed the image, it was meaningless. Let me remind everyone, if anyone is willing to help Blood Underworld deal with my people, please be prepared. I will look for you at any time. As long as I get the chance, I will take you down without hesitation. Ha! Ha ha ha! With a maniacal laugh, the image disappeared without a trace. The 5 Tao confirming imperial ancestors' faces were dark. They were only Tao confirming imperial ancestors, so they did not want to get involved in this matter at all. They could not afford to offend either side. Only death awaited them. Longao was very powerful. They could not hide here forever. Once Longao got the chance, they knew what it meant. Skybreaker Imperial Ancestor, Wu Qing Imperial Ancestor, Xiao Yao Imperial Ancestor, Xin Imperial Ancestor, and the Eternal Imperial Ancestor. Among the 18 Tao confirming Imperial Ancestors, the 5 of them were the weakest. Looking at Blood Underworld Imperial Ancestor, they could only sigh deeply. Blood Underworld looked at the 5 of them and the others. He already knew what they were thinking. He snorted and said coldly, "I'll say this first. If anyone dares to run away, we will work together to kill them." All the intermediate Tao confirming Imperial Ancestors stood up and agreed. Even if the 5 Tao confirming Imperial Ancestors were unwilling, they could only bite the bullet and agree. How could they not agree? Not to mention the intermediate Tao confirming Imperial Ancestors. Any one of them could deal with them. Moreover, there was a senior Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor. Once they provoked Blood Underworld Imperial Ancestor, they knew what it meant. On a lonely peak not far from Blood Underworld Peak, Longao stood quietly on the peak, looking at the endless void in the distance. This time, Blood Underworld Imperial Ancestor had invited all the Tao confirming Imperial Ancestors to deal with him. Only the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor, Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor, and Divine Martial Imperial Ancestor had not come. Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor was already at the peak of Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor, so he would not get involved. He only had one goal, which was to break through the last step and become a sovereign Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor. However, the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor had no enmity with him. It seemed that Blood Underworld Imperial Ancestor had not paid enough to invite him. If there was enough temptation, Longao was sure that the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor would come to deal with him. There was no doubt about it. As for the Divine Martial Imperial Ancestor, Longao had a good impression of him. Everyone had gone, except for the Divine Martial Imperial Ancestor. It seemed that the Divine Martial Imperial Ancestor had treated him as a friend. 13 Tao confirming Imperial Ancestors had joined forces. Even if he had broken through from the primary Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor to the intermediate Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor, he might not have been able to defeat them. The situation was somewhat troublesome. Longao's expression was very gloomy. He clenched his fists tightly and coldly said to himself, "Since you are courting death, don't blame me for being impolite. I will definitely kill those who dare to help Xue Ming." Chapter 34-31. 13 Tao confirming emperors had joined forces to set up an inescapable trap. Previously, 6 Tao confirming emperors had issued the kill order. But now a total of 13 Tao confirming emperors had issued the kill order, completely shaking the entire chaotic space. However, the battle between Tao confirming emperors was something that ordinary people could only look up to, not to mention ordinary Tao confirming emperors. Even Tao confirming emperors could not intervene in this matter. Tao confirming emperors were already the most terrifying existence in the chaotic space. Longao did not take the kill order issued by the 13 Tao confirming emperors seriously. It was a complete joke. You want to send me back into the reincarnation cycle? Dream on. Longao had been monitoring the 13 Tao confirming emperors. As soon as they separated, he would attack without hesitation. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Among the 13 Tao confirming emperors, his first target was the so-called 5 Tao confirming emperors. Longao was full of confidence. As long as he attacked, killing the 5 Tao confirming emperors would be a piece of cake. He sneered. 1 year. 2 years? 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. The 13 Tao confirming emperors could not do anything if Longao did not appear. Gradually, The Tao-confirming emperors began to leave blood Nether Peak, including the 5 Tao-confirming emperors. The 5 of them were not fools. Once they chose to separate, who knew if Longao would kill them one by one? However, the 5 of them did not look for any of the intermediate Tao-confirming emperors because they knew very well that if they followed the intermediate Tao-confirming emperors, they would lose their status. They did not want to live under someone else's roof. They were helpless. Heavenly Breaking Emperor, Heavenly Emperor Wu Qing, Heavenly Emperor Xiao Yao, Heavenly Emperor Xian, Heavenly Emperor Wan Gu. Where are we going now? The 5 of them had decided to stick together. Even if Longao appeared, they could inform the other intermediate Tao-confirming emperors in time. Under such circumstances, this was the best way. The 13 of us have issued the kill order. Unless Longao is out of his mind, it's impossible for him to appear in front of us. I'm sorry, I've disappointed you. Looking at the young man who had suddenly appeared in front of them, the 5 of them had already guessed who he was, and their expressions changed. Sky Splitter Imperial Ancestor, Heartless Imperial Ancestor, Unfettered Imperial Ancestor, Xian Tian Imperial Ancestor. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't wait for us to notify them. I'll kill you before they get here. He took a deep breath. Heartless Empyrean Ancestor said coldly, Longao, there is no enmity between us. We won't do anything to you, and I hope that you won't do anything to us. How about it? The fact that Longao was able to force back 5 mid-level Tao Validation Divine Ancestors with one sword strike was enough to prove his strength. They were simply not enough. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't afraid. Really? He sneered. Longao looked at the 5 people in front of him coldly. Although he had not broken through to the intermediate Emperor Ancestor realm, it was more than enough to deal with the 5 of them. Not to mention fighting one-on-one. Even 1 against 5 would not be a problem. Longao, we don't want to be your enemy. We hope you can leave. I'm sorry, but I have no intention of leaving this time. What did he mean? The 5 of them were not fools. Of course, they knew what Longao meant. Their faces were extremely gloomy, and they were as ugly as they could be. As early-level Tao Validation Divine Ancestors, they had no choice at all. No matter what they did, they would die. Longao did not want to continue talking nonsense. When he was about to attack, Longao's face turned cold. He sneered and said, let's see if they're faster than me. However, you'll regret it. Do you want to be reincarnated? The 5 of them had just sent a message to the 9 Tao Validation Divine Ancestors. They hoped that the 9 of them would arrive in time. Only then would they have a chance to stop Longao. Otherwise, even if the 5 of them joined forces, they would not be a match for Longao. Hearing this, the 5 of them were completely terrified. They looked at each other and did not continue to hesitate. One by one, they turned around and left in different directions. Want to leave? He sneered. Although Longao had not condensed the world domain, the terrifying Sword Chi formed a unique Sword Chi domain that directly enveloped the 5 of them. The 5 of them who had already escaped did not know why, but they felt that they had fallen into a quagmire and could not move at all. They were completely terrified. Longao, we're willing to submit to you. I hope you can let us go. The godly war sword appeared in Longao's right hand. Among the 5 of them, the first person Longao chose was Wu Qing Imperial Ancestor. He could kill an early-level Tao Validation Divine Ancestor with a single strike. The sword Qi was like a rainbow. Wherever it passed, Wu Qing Imperial Ancestor was killed. His primordial spirit escaped, but Longao grabbed it in his hand. Sword Qi streaked across the sky. In just a few minutes, the 5 early-stage Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestors, Heaven Splitter Imperial Ancestor, Merciless Imperial Ancestor, Carefree Imperial Ancestor, Xian Imperial Ancestor, and Eternal Imperial Ancestor were all killed. The primordial spirits of the 5 Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestors fell into Longao's hands. After breaking through to the Tao Validation Divine Ancestor realm, the primordial spirit was infinitely close to being immortal under normal circumstances. Therefore, no one could kill it. It could only enter the reincarnation cycle and be forcefully suppressed, just as the 5 of them were killed. The 8 Tao Validation Divine Ancestors: Skybreaker Imperial Ancestor, Yaoji Imperial Ancestor, Purple Blood Imperial Ancestor, Yin Yang Imperial Ancestor, Devourer Imperial Ancestor, Shrouding Imperial Ancestor, Massacre Imperial Ancestor, and Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor arrived at the same time. They looked at Longao in front of them, especially the 5 primordial spirits in his hands. Their faces were extremely gloomy because they never thought that Longao's strength would be so abnormal that he could kill 5 of them in such a short time. Longao, let go of the 5 of them. As long as the primordial spirits of the Tao Validation Divine Ancestors were not destroyed or did not enter the reincarnation cycle, they could reform their bodies in an extremely short time. Longao laughed coldly and looked at the 8 of them coldly. I'm sorry, but the 5 of them brought this upon themselves. I've already said before that whoever dares to join forces against me will be crushed into ashes. They're just the beginning. Next, I'll look for all of you one by one. Ha ha, ha ha, ha ha. Longao was more than arrogant. Facing 7 middle-level Tao Validation Divine Ancestors and 1 high-level Tao Validation Divine Ancestor, he still dared to provoke them. In the entire chaos space, other than the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor, no one else would dare to do so. Even the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor would not dare to do so. Longao, do you think that you can leave this place alive? Chapter 34-32. He sneered. Longao coldly looked at the 8 people in front of him. Imperial Ancestor Skybreaker, Imperial Ancestor Demonis, Imperial Ancestor Purple Blood, Imperial Ancestor Yin Yang, Imperial Ancestor Devourer, Imperial Ancestor Shrouding Heaven, Imperial Ancestor Slaughter, and Imperial Ancestor Blood Abyss. This was especially true for the Demonis Empress. They had already forgotten about their grudges. But now, Longao felt disgusted when he saw Empress Yaoji. She had refined his origin domain, broken through to the mid-level Tao corroboration realm, and turned against him. He seemed to understand what Longao meant. The Demonis Empress's expression was ugly. How could she not come? If she could, she definitely wouldn't want to come. No matter what, she had let down Longao and even devoured his origin domain. Otherwise, she would not have reached where she was today. However, if she hadn't come, Blood Abyss Royal Ancestor would have joined forces with the other Royal Ancestors to deal with her. How could she, a sovereign ancestor who had just broken through to the intermediate Tao affirmation realm, resist? It was complete nonsense. Enchantress was afraid of death. If she wasn't afraid of death, she wouldn't have stood up in the first place. Longao, if you surrender, I can guarantee that you won't truly die. Ha 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 ha. Hearing Yao Ji's words, Longao raised his head and laughed. His laughter was filled with ridicule and disdain. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen someone so shameless. Yao Ji, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I hope that you will never talk to me again. Talking to a shameless person like you is an insult. I was truly blind back then. Humiliation. This was a blatant humiliation. Although the Enchantress felt sorry for him, she was a mid-level Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor, and he was at a disadvantage, yet he still dared to humiliate her. Blood Abyss Royal Ancestor sneered. He looked at Empress Yaoji and said, Empress Yaoji, there is no need to be angry. He is about to die. I have thought of a way to completely destroy his primordial spirit. Under normal circumstances, the primordial spirit of a Tao confirming sovereign ancestor was infinitely close to being indestructible. It was infinitely close, but not truly immortal and indestructible. Not to mention early stage, intermediate stage, or advanced stage Tao corroboration emperors. Even peak stage Tao corroboration emperors' primordial spirits were not truly immortal. In the past, the 6 Tao confirming emperors had joined forces to suppress Longao because they were unable to truly destroy Longao's primordial spirit. There was no doubt about it. Apart from the ethereal imperial ancestor, the other 5 Tao confirming imperial ancestors would not hesitate to destroy Longao if they had the slightest chance. Hearing the Blood Nether Emperor's words, The 7 of them all looked at the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor with surprise written all over their faces. If he could truly destroy Longao, including his primordial spirit, and not just suppress Longao, then he would be able to destroy Longao. In the end, it was impossible to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Just like this time, Longao had gone through a myriad of reincarnations, but he'd still managed to successfully reincarnate and come this far despite being suppressed by the joint forces of 6 Tao-confirming emperors. Only true destruction was the only way to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Longao, I can give you a chance. As long as you choose to submit to me, not only will I not destroy you, I can even help you break through to the intermediate Tao-confirming emperors. What do you think? Until now, the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor still wanted to subdue Longao. After all, Longao's talent and strength were obvious. If he could subdue Longao, it would undoubtedly be a great help to him. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. How could the others not know what the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor meant? Although they were unhappy, they did not say anything. No matter what, Blood Abyss's strength and status were obvious. As one of the 2 high-level Tao-confirming emperors, Blood Abyss's strength was extremely powerful. Trash. Longao could not figure out what the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor was thinking. Why did he want him to submit? Trash? Blood Abyss hugged Yaoji and caressed her small waist. He laughed without restraint. In the past, he had fought with Longao for Yaoji. He had never thought that he would lose in the end. Because of this, he wanted to do this in front of Longao. Yaoji felt helpless. However, the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor's strength was obvious. She could only successfully break through to the advanced Tao-confirming emperors if she followed a high-level Tao-confirming emperors. In order to increase her strength, she was willing to give up everything. Longao, remember this. You are not qualified to fight with me. Longao, for a woman. As soon as he finished speaking, Blood Abyss kissed Yaoji's face and laughed maniacally again. The remaining 7 people were helpless, but more of them were laughing at him. No matter where they went, strength was everything. As long as they were strong enough, they could do whatever they wanted. Longao, are you afraid? This time I will not suppress you. I will directly destroy you. Longao put away the primordial spirits of the 5 Tao-confirming imperial ancestors he had just killed. He didn't want to waste any more time. Since they were going to fight anyway, it was better to fight earlier than later. Boom, 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 boom. The thunder and lightning dragon let out a series of dragon roars, accompanied by thunder and lightning that resounded throughout the 9 heavens. The first move was Devour the Firmament. Longao immediately began to condense Sword Chi. It was the second move, Sword Break the Cosmos. Until now, he had not succeeded in comprehending the third move. Back then, he had only touched upon the third move and had not truly comprehended it. The 8 of them were startled, especially the 5 imperial ancestors who were forced back by Longao's sword. They knew how heaven-defying Longao's attack was, so they didn't dare to hesitate. They joined forces and attacked from 8 different directions. This time, the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor was no longer cautious. He knew that he was the only one who could suppress Longao if the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor and the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor did not attack. If he didn't attack, the 7 Imperial Ancestors wouldn't be able to kill Longao even if they joined forces. Longao was only a beginner Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestor, but he already possessed such strength. It was because of this that the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor was completely flustered. He was ready to destroy him once and for all. This time, it wasn't just suppression, but destruction. 8 Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestors. 1 high-level Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestor and 7 mid-level Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestors joined forces. The Devour the Firmament and Sword Break the Cosmos were broken apart by the 8 of them as soon as he used them. They seemed to have guessed it, so Longao wasn't too surprised. If it were just the 7 mid-level Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestors, he should be able to handle them. However, against the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor, even he didn't have the slightest bit of confidence. The Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor rarely attacked, but he was most wary of him. Not only was he cautious, his strength was unfathomable. According to Longao's guess, among the two high-level Dao confirming Imperial Ancestors, the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor's strength should be above that of the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor. Although the outside world had always said that the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor was the second most powerful person in the Chaos world. Chapter 34-33. 1 against 8. Even if Longao were to break through to the middle level of Longao, he might not be able to do this, let alone the current Longao. Boom! 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 A series of explosions rang out through the 9 heavens. The Blood Hades royal ancestor slammed his palm down on Longao's back. At the same time that Longao's body flew out, the origin source energy in his body suddenly began to spin wildly. His face lit up with joy. Forming a world territory? Sensing that Longao was forming a world territory, everyone was dumbfounded. Don't let him succeed. All 8 of them knew clearly what it would mean if Longao were to successfully form a world territory. Just the thought of it sent shivers down their spines. They were filled with dread. The only way out was to remove the weeds by the roots and prevent any future troubles. I see. The speed at which Longao was forming his world territory was way beyond the knowledge of all 8 of them. In less than a couple of minutes, he had successfully formed the source energy of the world within his body. Middle-level Dao, proving Emperor Ancestor, Longao. Sensing the shocking changes in Longao's body, the faces of all 8 of them changed entirely as they looked at each other with grim expressions. Back then, Longao was only a middle-level Dao, proving Emperor Ancestor. Yet he could take on 6 of them alone. But now, Longao was only a low-level Dao, proving Emperor Ancestor. Yet he could force back 5 of them with a single sword. What sort of a concept was that? Furthermore, Longao had truly broken through from a low-level Dao, proving Emperor Ancestor, to a middle-level Dao, proving Emperor Ancestor. How sick was his strength now? Looking at the 8 of them coldly, Longao laughed coldly and said coldly, "I hope you guys won't disappoint me." Huh? What did Longao mean by that? Looking at Longao, who had just leveled up, they would be lying if they said that they weren't afraid. Let alone Blood Hades royal ancestor. Just the other 7 Dao, proving Emperor Ancestors, were a little scared. Purple Blood Imperial Ancestor, Yin Yang Imperial Ancestor, Devouring Imperial Ancestor, Shrouding Imperial Ancestor, Slaughtering Imperial Ancestor. After hearing Longao call out their names, the 5 Dao confirming emperors became quite gloomy and unsightly. Among the 8 people, the ones who had the worst relationship with Longao were the 5 of them. If Longao made a move, he would definitely start with the 5 of them. How could they not be afraid? "How Longao you?" He forced a smile. Longao sneered, not willing to continue talking nonsense. Since it was going to be a battle anyway, there was no need to say anything useless. He took a step forward and dashed out like a bolt of lightning, consecutively using his 2 sure-kill moves, devouring the heavens and sword puncturing the universe. Moments ago, when the Blood Netherworld Emperor had nearly killed him, Longao had suddenly gained enlightenment of his 3rd move, Space-Time Reincarnation. Space-Time Reincarnation was the strongest move that could be condensed from space-time abilities. In order to end the battle quickly, Longao directly used Space-Time Samsara. Space-Time Rewind. Under everyone's horrified gazes, they realized that the space-time around them was starting to change. Without hesitation, the 8 of them joined forces to break the space-time reincarnation. Even the Blood Netherworld Emperor was a little frightened. He had not expected that Longao would gain such a horrifying move after he had successfully broken through to the middle level of Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. This was a move that even he would find hard to defend against. Among the 8 of them, the first one that Longao locked onto was the Slaughter Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. Space-Time Rewind. On the Slaughter Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, Lin Fan immediately used space-time reincarnation. In the next second, the Slaughter Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor felt his body starting to change. In his mind, the memories of his essence spirit started to rewind. Whether it was his essence spirit, his body, or his memories, everything started to rewind rapidly. 1 lifetime, 2 lifetimes, 3 lifetimes, in the blink of an eye, the Slaughter Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor turned into a baby. Using the space-time ability, Lin Fan reversed the space-time and even reincarnation, forcing the Slaughter Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor back to his original form. Looking at the Slaughter Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor, who was just like a baby, the remaining 7 of them were dumbfounded. How would they dare to stay any longer? Breaking through the space-time rewind, all of them fled in 7 different directions. Even the Blood Netherworld Emperor Ancestor did not dare to stay any longer. He snorted coldly. Among the 7 of them, Longao eventually chose the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor. That was the reason why he ignored the escape of the other 6. He just had his eyes fixed on the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor. His speed was neither fast nor slow, as though he was playing a game of cat and mouse. F***CK. The Yin-Yang Emperor cursed in his heart. Longao did not chase after anyone else but him. His luck was way too bad. The Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor did not have the slightest bit of confidence to fight with Longao. The scene of Longao killing the Slaughter Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor was still fresh in his mind. If he were to fight with the Slaughter Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor, he did not know if he could defeat the latter. Since Longao could kill the Slaughter Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor, killing him would be something that could be done in a matter of minutes. F***CK. That's the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor? Who's the one chasing after the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor? That's 2F** King Awesome. He even dares to chase after the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor. Wait a minute. That seems to be Longao. Looking at the 2 figures that disappeared one after another, everyone who saw it was shocked to the extreme. No matter what, the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor was a legendary intermediate Dao Vindication Imperial Ancestor. Unexpectedly, he was chased by the Longao Imperial Ancestor. If they did not see it with their own eyes, even if they were beaten to death, they would not believe it. What was going on? Devouring Cloud, Longao is chasing after the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor. If nothing goes wrong, Longao should have become an intermediate Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor. The Devouring Heaven's Sovereign sighed. How long had it been since Longao had become so strong? Even the Longao of the past was nothing in front of him. He was indeed the reincarnation of an expert. However, the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor was also an intermediate Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor. He did not even have the chance to fight back against Longao. The young master also smiled. He was happy for his friend. Previously, he was worried that Longao would not be able to fight against all the intermediate Dao confirming Emperor Ancestors. Now, it seemed that his worries were unnecessary. Longao's strength was needless to say. Longao could chase after the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor. This meant that he was invincible among the intermediate Dao confirming Emperor Ancestors. Longao was invincible. Looking at the entire chaos space, there was only 1 peak Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor and 2 advanced Dao confirming Emperor Ancestors. I hope that Longao is strong enough to suppress the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor. Otherwise, the young master did not continue. But the worry in his words was obvious. Everyone knew about the grudge between Longao and the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor. After all, the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor was a senior Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor. Longao could chase after the Yin-Yang Emperor Ancestor, but it was unknown whether he could fight against the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor. The Devouring Heaven Sovereign sighed helplessly and said, "We can't interfere in their battle. Don't be reckless. Not only will you not be able to help Longao, you might even drag him down." Chapter 34-34. He nodded. How could the young master not know what his father meant? Longao was already a mid-level Dao, confirming Imperial Ancestor. In the entire chaotic space, only 3 people might be able to suppress him. They could not interfere in a battle of this level. Just like what his father had said, not only could he not interfere in a battle of this level, but he would also implicate Longao. He let out a deep sigh. Being chased by Longao, the yin-yang Imperial Ancestor was furious. However, so what if he was furious? Longao was powerful enough to kill the Slaughter Imperial Ancestor. Would he dare to fight against him? It was complete nonsense. He stopped abruptly and looked at Longao angrily. The yin-yang Imperial Ancestor suppressed his killing intent and said, Longao, I was wrong before. I can apologize to you. Let's forget about the grudge between us. How about that? Shameless. Longao's face was full of mockery. He had seen shameless people before, but he had never seen such a shameless person. The yin-yang Imperial Ancestor had dealt with him and even suppressed him. Now that he was not as powerful as him, he wanted to forget about it. How could there be such a good thing in this world? Yin-yang, I can spare your life, but you must choose to surrender. Surrender. Once surrendered, there would be no more hope. Therefore, no matter who it was, especially the Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor, they would not surrender even if they died, because they still had a chance to be reborn. Once they surrendered, there would be no chance for them to be reborn. The yin-yang Imperial Ancestor did not expect Longao to be so arrogant. He wanted him to surrender. There was no room for negotiation. If he agreed, how could he face himself? He was furious. He had to endure it. Otherwise, if he angered Longao, he would definitely die. The Slaughter Imperial Ancestor's primordial spirit might enter reincarnation because of Lin Fan's instant kill. This was what the yin-yang Imperial Ancestor was most concerned about. Longao, don't go too far. Although I admit that I'm not your opponent now, even if I die, I can still drag you down with me. So, you'd better not provoke me, or else, he waved his hand, stopping Imperial Ancestor Yin-yang from continuing. Longao's face became more and more gloomy. Do you think you can destroy everything? He looked at Longao in front of him. The yin-yang Imperial Ancestors were clearly stunned. The mystique Longao had used before was a little too terrifying. Even if he wanted to injure both sides, it seemed to be a little difficult, so he couldn't do it. If that was the case, it would be too much of a pain in the ass. What should he do? Was he really going to die here? He was very unwilling to accept this. After going through countless life and death situations, he had finally reached the intermediate Tao, confirming Imperial Ancestor realm. How could he be willing to die like this? Not to mention the yin-yang Imperial Ancestor. Even the other Tao, confirming Imperial Ancestors, would not be willing to die like this. Emperors who had reached the Tao-proving realm were most afraid of death. Longao, other than death and submission, you can state any condition you want. I will agree to it. What conditions do you think I need? What a joke. Yin-yang, I really don't have time to waste with you. You'd better give me an answer. I'll count to 3. If you don't agree, not only will I kill you, I'll also seal your soul forever. Even if you enter the cycle of reincarnation, you won't have a chance. You're so cruel. When the 6 of them suppressed Longao, it was not that they didn't want to suppress Longao's reincarnation, but they didn't know why Longao's primordial spirit would automatically enter the cycle of reincarnation at the most critical moment. No matter how hard they tried, it was useless. 1. His heart trembled. The yin-yang Imperial Ancestor was really afraid. Was he really going to die? Even if his primordial spirit was sealed forever, the yin-yang Imperial Ancestor didn't think that the others would find trouble with Longao for him. If it had been before, they might have. After all, Longao was just a beginner Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't fight against 10 people at once. Moreover, there was Xue Ming, a senior Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor among them. But now, the situation was completely different. Not only had Longao broken through to the intermediate Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor level, but he also possessed such a heaven-defying divine power. He could even kill an intermediate Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestor in a matter of minutes. The Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor even thought that Longao could fight against Shui Ming Imperial Ancestor with his current strength. Facing such an abnormal expert, the others couldn't wait to hide. If Longao didn't take the initiative to look for them, how could they take the initiative to look for Longao? It was complete nonsense. It was impossible. What should they do? What should they do? 2. Hearing the number 2, the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor's face darkened. Given the current situation, even Shui Ming Imperial Ancestor wouldn't dare to look for trouble with Longao. The God-slaying Imperial Ancestor and Shui Ming Imperial Ancestor were both advanced Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestors. Since Shui Ming Imperial Ancestor might not be a match for Longao, the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor wouldn't be a match for Longao either. If that was the case, there was only one person in the entire chaotic space who could suppress Longao. That was the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor, who hadn't shown up for many years. However, the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor was a peak Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor. He was only one step away from becoming a legendary Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor. However, the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor hadn't shown up for many years. Even if he did, he might not help the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor. There was no doubt about it. No one would interfere in this matter, let alone the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor. Surrender or die? The Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor was conflicted. As a middle Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor, he didn't want to die, but he didn't want to surrender either. If he could escape this calamity, he wouldn't want to interfere in this matter anymore. Gritting his teeth, the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor begged for mercy. Longao, as long as you let me go, I won't find trouble with you anymore. I can also serve you for 10,000 years. After 10,000 years, you have to restore my freedom. How about that? Serving for 10,000 years was a shameful thing in itself. However, under such circumstances, there was no other way. Whoever had the stronger fist had the right to speak. 3. Longao. Before the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor could say anything, Longao sneered. Yin-Yang, aren't you too naive? Back then, you joined forces with others to suppress me, to suppress the 10,000 reincarnation. Previously, you tried to kill me time and time again. If it wasn't for my luck, I would have been suppressed by you guys once again. But you're simply serving me for 10,000 years. Ha ha, ha ha. Looking at Longao, who was laughing maniacally, the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor's face turned ugly. It seemed that Longao wouldn't let him go no matter what. There were only 2 paths in front of him now. Either he chose death or he chose to surrender. However, the more he thought about it, the more frustrated and angry he got. Time rewind. Chapter 34-35. Hearing the word space-time rewind. The Imperial Ancestor of Yin-Yang shuddered. Imperial Ancestor Yin-Yang was terrified of Longao's space-time superpower. Because of the word space-time rewind, Longao made the Imperial Ancestor of Slaughter go back to the time of an infant, killing him instantly. Longao, I choose to submit. In the face of absolute life and death, no matter how unwilling or disrespectful one was, one had to submit. Longao was too terrifying. Imperial Ancestor Yin-Yang knew very well that he was no match for Longao in his current situation. There was no suspense. If he could enter reincarnation, it would be a great choice. But the result? Longao would not let him enter reincarnation at all. Even if he could not completely destroy him, he could completely suppress him. Everyone knew what that meant. Space-time rewind. Huh? Seeing that Longao had no intention of letting him go, Imperial Ancestor Yin-Yang was not a fool. He immediately understood what Longao meant. From the beginning, Longao had no intention of letting him go. How could he not be angry? Longao, even if I die, I will drag you down with me. Just as Imperial Ancestor Yin-Yang had guessed, Longao had no intention of letting him go. It was nonsense. Imperial ancestor Yin Yang had attacked him from the beginning. If he did not kill him, he would not be able to vent his anger. You want to die together with me? You think you can? Longao sneered. Just in case, he threw a punch at Imperial ancestor Yin Yang while using space-time rewind. The third move, space-time reincarnation. Boom! There was a loud explosion. In endless anger and unwillingness, Imperial ancestor Yin Yang's body began to retreat. In a short while, he turned into an infant. After bursting Imperial ancestor Yin Yang's body with a punch, Lin Fan grabbed Imperial ancestor Yin Yang's primordial spirit and entered his chaotic Dantian. Imperial ancestor Yin Yang, Imperial ancestor Wu Qing, Imperial ancestor Xiao Yao, Imperial ancestor Xin Tian, Imperial ancestor Wangu, Imperial ancestor Massacre, and Imperial ancestor Yin Yang. A total of 7 Imperial ancestors were killed. Only 6 of the 13 Imperial ancestors who had joined forces to deal with Long Ao were left. Brother Long, are you okay? Brother Ao, are you all right? The 6 girls kept asking questions, but Long Ao felt a trace of warmth in his heart. Long Ao explained to the 6 women what had just happened. Then, 6 balls of primordial spirit appeared in his hands. With the help of space-time samsara, Long Ao had completely destroyed the consciousness of the primordial spirit. In the entire chaotic space, the only person who could do this was Long Ao. Even the primordial Tao Emperor might not be able to do it. In other words, from now on, the 7 Tao confirming royal ancestors were truly dead. They didn't even have the chance to enter the cycle of reincarnation. The 6 of you will devour the primordial spirits of the Tao confirming emperors. Big Brother Long, don't you need to check your body's fitness level? There's no need. I've already prepared cultivation techniques for each of you. Also, I'll do my best to help you break through. The 6 of them didn't stand on ceremony. Yun Shi, Yun Qian, Ling Ruoi, Han Yin, Song Lin, and Qin Shuangshuang each picked up a Tao confirming emperor primordial spirit. However, Song Lin and Han Yin picked up 2 mid-level Tao confirming emperor primordial spirits. There was only 1 low-level Tao confirming emperor primordial spirit left. Long Ao frowned as he didn't know who to give the remaining emperor primordial spirit to. He didn't give it to his divine beast. Whether it was Piggy or the 10 great chaotic divine beasts, they would have to rely on themselves in the future. After all, there was a fundamental difference between a divine beast and a martial artist who devoured an emperor primordial spirit. It was still unknown whether a divine beast could become a Tao confirming emperor primordial spirit after devouring an emperor primordial spirit. Long Ao didn't want to waste a Tao confirming emperor primordial spirit. If his master or his family were here, he would definitely give it to them. Unfortunately, they weren't here. Long Ao was just in case. No one knew if the Tao confirming emperor primordial spirit would suddenly disappear and enter the cycle of reincarnation. To be safe, it was best to find someone to devour the Tao confirming emperor primordial spirit as soon as possible. It was better to be safe than sorry. Who should he choose? Brother Long, what's wrong? Qin Shuangshuang asked curiously. She didn't know what was going on with Brother Long. He seemed to have something on his mind. Long Ao didn't hide anything and said helplessly, I killed a total of 7 Tao confirming emperor primordial spirits. The 6 of you obtained 6 Tao confirming emperor primordial spirits each. I don't know who to give the remaining emperor primordial spirit to. After all, my family, including my master, aren't here. I'm very worried. Although I've refined the spiritual consciousness of this Tao confirming emperor primordial spirit, the emperor primordial spirit may escape at any time. Therefore, I have to find someone to refine it as soon as possible. Only then can I be completely at ease. Qin Shuangshuang already knew what Brother Long meant. She thought for a moment and said, Brother Long, if that's the case, why don't you find a reliable friend and let him devour this emperor primordial spirit? A trustworthy friend? Soul severing? Young master? Originally, his 4 disciples were the most suitable candidates. However, Long Ao had already sent them into the cycle of reincarnation. The reason was simple. All 4 of them had been imprinted with the primordial spirit of the 5 Tao confirming emperors. Only by entering the cycle of reincarnation would they be able to completely remove the imprint. Because of this, Longao decided on two of his best friends. One was soul-severing, and the other was his young master. However, he didn't know whether he should give this emperor primordial spirit to his young master or soul-severing. After thinking about it, Longao decided to let his young master devour the emperor primordial spirit. He didn't hesitate and immediately went to the sky-devouring peak. The news of imperial ancestor Longao killing 5 Tao-confirming emperors and an intermediate Tao-confirming emperor primordial spirit had spread throughout the entire chaotic space. Anyone who heard this news was shocked. Rumor had it that imperial ancestor Longao didn't die under the joint attack of 8 Tao-confirming emperors. Instead, he broke through from the primary Tao-confirming emperors to the intermediate Tao-confirming emperors. Since then, he had shown great power and killed Tao-confirming emperors continuously. In an instant, Longao's reputation spread throughout the chaotic space. He had fought against 13 Tao-confirming emperors and even killed 7 of them. This was unheard of. This battle was earth-shattering and completely shocked the entire chaotic space. Have you heard? Imperial ancestor Longao is now the second strongest expert in the chaotic space. Even Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor is no match for Imperial Ancestor Longao. Now it seems that the other god-slaying Imperial Ancestor shouldn't be a match for Imperial Ancestor Longao either. Only the legendary Dao Yuan can suppress Imperial Ancestor Longao. Really? At this moment, a figure flashed quickly. Before the two of them could react, they were killed in an instant. Even their primordial spirits were completely crushed. P.S. Please support Little Gio's new book, Cultivation Rampage Upgrade. This book will officially end on the 30th. Thank you for your continued support. Chapter 34-36. The God-slaying Imperial Ancestor's face darkened. Longao, you're really strong. I'd like to see if you're stronger than me. The person who had just appeared was none other than the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor, one of the 2 high-level Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestors. Until now, the God-slaying Imperial Ancestor found it hard to believe that Longao could kill 7 Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestors in a row. As for whether Longao had really scared off the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor, it remained to be seen. He knew how cautious the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor was. Everyone in the chaos space was talking about how Longao was the second strongest person in the chaos space. The god-slaying Imperial Ancestor couldn't take it anymore. For so many years, he had always been known as the strongest person under the Tao Origin Imperial Ancestor, or the second strongest person. But now, Longao was recognized as the second strongest person. The arrogant, god-slaying Imperial Ancestor couldn't take it anymore, so he wanted to come out and compete with Longao to see who was stronger. The god-slaying Imperial Ancestor didn't care about Longao at all. No matter how strong an intermediate Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestor was, he was still an intermediate Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestor. He wasn't on the same level as an advanced Tao-confirming Imperial Ancestor. The gap between the two was too big. In the main hall, the two people who were talking about something suddenly stood up and looked at Longao. The young master smiled excitedly and said, "You're fine. It seems like the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor has fallen." Be it the young master or the heaven-devouring emperor, both of them were clear about one thing. Longao had been chasing after the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor previously. Now that Longao was fine, the only explanation was that the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor had fallen. The grudge between Longao and the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor had reached the point where they couldn't be killed. How could Longao give up on the Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor so easily? It was complete nonsense. Longao just smiled and nodded, saying, "I'll find the Imperial Ancestors who suppressed me one by one. The Yin-Yang Imperial Ancestor is only the 7th. Hearing this, the two of them sighed endlessly. Before this, The two of them already knew that Longao had killed an entire 7 sovereign ancestors in succession. Brother Long, although you can look down on the chaos space with your current strength, you still have to be careful. I heard that the 2 high-level Tao confirming sovereign ancestors are not to be underestimated. A high-level Tao Emperor ancestor? Longao didn't know if he could kill a high-level Tao confirming royal ancestor or not. Without a real battle, he wouldn't know. However, even if he couldn't kill a high-level Tao confirming royal ancestor, he believed that he wouldn't be afraid of 2 high-level Tao confirming royal ancestors. Longao just smiled. Young master, I'm looking for you this time mainly because of something. What is it? The young master had already decided that although he was weak, as long as he could help Longao, he would definitely not refuse. Young master was very loyal. The heaven-devouring emperor was curious as well. He did not know why Longao was looking for his son all of a sudden. However, the heaven-devouring emperor knew that with Longao's current strength, he couldn't interfere at all. Not to mention him, even a complete realm Tao confirming emperor was like an ant. A Tao confirming sovereign ancestor was high and mighty. They stood at the peak of the martial Tao, especially since Longao could kill 7 high-level Tao confirming royal ancestors. Even if he couldn't defeat a high-level Tao confirming royal ancestor, he could defeat anyone below the mid-level Tao confirming royal ancestor. He was considered the 4th strongest person in the chaos space. If Longao could defeat 2 high-level Tao confirming royal ancestors, then the rumors would be true. Longao would be the 2nd strongest person in the chaos space. What did that mean? Longao smiled and took out a primordial spirit from his bosom. This is? Looking at the primordial spirit in Longao's hand, both the heaven-devouring emperor and the young master's eyes narrowed. This was the legendary primordial spirit of a Tao confirming royal ancestor. One had to know. In the entire chaos space, there were a total of 18 Tao confirming royal ancestors. Only when a Tao confirming royal ancestor fell would the primordial spirit appear. Brother Long, what do you mean by this? The young master wasn't a fool. He seemed to have guessed something, but he was still unwilling to believe it. After all, the value of a Tao confirming royal ancestors' primordial spirit was obvious. Even if they were friends, how could Longao let him devour the primordial spirit of a Tao confirming royal ancestor? It was complete nonsense. Young master, you're my friend. There's no need to say anything else. I'll give you this primordial spirit of a Tao confirming royal ancestor, but you have to promise me one thing. Please say it. The young master didn't continue to be courteous. He knew that since Longao took out the primordial spirit of a Tao confirming royal ancestor, he must have made a decision. It would be a lie if he said that he didn't want the primordial spirit of a Tao confirming royal ancestor. After all, if he devoured the primordial spirit, he could become a Tao confirming royal ancestor as long as there were no accidents. A Tao confirming royal ancestor was an existence that stood at the pinnacle of the martial Tao. They stood at the peak of the chaos space. Until now, the young master didn't dare to imagine that he could devour a Tao confirming royal ancestor's primordial spirit and become a Tao confirming royal ancestor in the future. Young master, I see you as a friend, a true friend. Longao didn't continue speaking. Whether it was the heaven-devouring great emperor or the young master, both of them knew what Longao meant. After thinking about it, they felt relieved. In this world, there were no eternal enemies and no eternal friends. There were only eternal benefits. In the face of absolute benefits, friends could become enemies, and enemies could also become friends. Longao was really worried. Yao Ji was a precedent. In the past, he and Yao Ji were very close to each other. He even helped Yao Ji to move forward, but what was the result? In the end, the one who betrayed him was Yao Ji. It would be a lie if he said that he didn't care. After all, he used to love her. Longao didn't want something like this to happen a second time, especially when it was his good friend. Perhaps the young master wouldn't have such a thing before he broke through. Once the young master became a Tao confirming royal ancestor, no one knew what would happen. The young master didn't hesitate and immediately swore the Tao, confirming oath. Longao smiled. The young master smiled as well. As for the heaven-devouring great emperor, he was extremely surprised and excited. He never thought that his son would be able to become a Tao-confirming royal ancestor and stand at the peak of the martial Tao. Brother Long, I will refine the primordial spirit of the Tao-confirming royal ancestor in the shortest time possible. Once I break through, I will help you. All right. Longao didn't reject. Even if they were friends, it was impossible for him to be selfless. The primordial spirit of a Tao-confirming royal ancestor was different from other things. After Longao left, the young master didn't hesitate and went into seclusion to cultivate. The young master knew that it wasn't easy to refine the primordial spirit of a Tao-confirming royal ancestor. The god-slaying royal ancestor tried to locate Longao's location. However, the primal chaos space was boundless. It wasn't easy to locate Longao. Chapter 34-37. In the chaotic space, on the peak of an illusory mountain, an old man sat quietly on the peak with his eyes closed. He was motionless like an old monk meditating. Xueming, what's the matter? The old man opened his eyes, his face cold. He looked curiously at Xueming Forefather, who had suddenly appeared in front of him. He didn't know why Xueming Forefather had come to see him. The old man knew very well that when he was in seclusion, no one was allowed to disturb him. With Xueming's cautious personality, he wouldn't provoke him. He looked at the old man in front of him. Xueming was really afraid. In the entire chaotic space, the old man was the true number one. Even if he joined forces with God-slaying royal forefather, they wouldn't be a match for the old man. The old man was none other than Daoyuan royal forefather. There were a total of 18 royal forefathers in the chaotic space. One was a peak royal forefather, and 2 were advanced royal forefathers. The 2 advanced royal forefathers were God-slaying royal forefather and Xueming imperial forefather. The only peak royal forefather was the forefather in front of him, Daoyuan royal forefather. Xueming had no doubts about Daoyuan royal forefather's strength. He and God-slaying royal forefather could only create the world domain cage, but Daoyuan royal forefather could break it directly. What did that mean? Others might not know, but Xueming imperial forefather knew that Daoyuan royal forefather had reached the peak and could break through to sovereign realm at any time. The Tao-confirming sovereign was a supreme existence in the legends. After bowing respectfully, Xueming helplessly recounted everything that had happened previously. Xueming imperial forefather knew that even if he invited God-slaying royal forefather to help him, God-slaying royal forefather alone wouldn't be able to kill Longao. He was very cautious. He knew that if he and God-slaying royal forefather joined forces, they would have a high chance of killing Longao, but he didn't dare try. This was because Xueming was afraid that if the 2 of them joined forces to deal with Longao and failed to kill Longao, they would be killed by Longao instead. If that happened, they wouldn't even have the chance to regret it. He didn't want to take the risk. He couldn't take the risk. You said Longao has comprehended space-time's superpower? Yes, Your Excellency. He was very surprised. Dao Yuan's cultivation had broken through to the peak of the Dao sovereign ancestor realm. He knew very well what the space-time divine ability meant. Even he had only just touched upon space-time god art. Was it possible for an intermediate Dao confirming sovereign ancestor to comprehend a space-time divine ability? Dao Yuan never interfered in anything, so he didn't know much about Longao. It was instinctive. Dao Yuan imperial ancestor didn't believe that a mere mid-level Dao confirming imperial ancestor could comprehend a space-time divine ability. It was utter nonsense. However, the Dao origin imperial ancestor knew better than anyone that the blood nether imperial ancestor would not dare lie to him. Xueming, I understand what you mean. I'm very interested in Longao's space-time divine ability. However, I don't have time now. 10,000 years from now, I will deal with him. He could not help it, but the Daoyuan emperor had reached a critical point in his seclusion. Of course, he would not make a move now. In his opinion, Even if Longao had comprehended the space-time mystique, he would not take him seriously. It was only 10,000 years. For experts at their level, 10,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Thank you. You can leave now. Yes. Looking at the endless void in front of him, the Daoyuan imperial ancestor smiled and said, I didn't expect a mere mid-level Dao, confirming imperial ancestor, to comprehend a space-time divine ability. However, it's a good thing for me. 10,000 years later, I will personally capture you to verify it. Perhaps I can rely on you to break through the final bottleneck. The Daoyuan imperial ancestor felt a deep sense of helplessness when he thought about the peak of the Dao confirming sovereign realm. A peak Dao confirming imperial ancestor would always be a peak Dao confirming imperial ancestor. As long as he did not break through the final bottleneck, he would always be a Dao confirming imperial ancestor, not the legendary supreme realm of the Dao confirming sovereign realm. 10,000 years later, when he comprehended the strongest technique, he would capture Longao and force him to hand over the space-time divine ability. Perhaps he would be able to smoothly advance to the next realm. How could he not be excited? After leaving, the Blood Abyss imperial ancestor was pleasantly surprised. As long as the Daoyuan imperial ancestor struck, Longao would definitely die. Before he came, he already knew that as long as he told the Daoyuan imperial ancestor about this, the Daoyuan imperial ancestor would definitely kill Longao. The space-time divine ability was a legendary divine ability. Even the Daoyuan imperial ancestor would not be able to resist such a temptation. If not for the fact that he didn't have full confidence, he would have wanted to obtain the space-time divine ability as well. Once he comprehended such a divine ability, even if he wasn't a match for the Daoyuan imperial ancestor, killing the god-slaying imperial ancestor would be a piece of cake. Longao, you only have 10,000 years left. Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Blood Abyss had already decided that within these 10,000 years, he would definitely not go against Longao head-on. The moment the Daoyuan imperial ancestor came out of his seclusion, that would be the day of Longao's death. The god-slaying imperial ancestor was still trying to lock onto Longao's position. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. The discussions in the chaos space were getting more and more heated. More and more people were starting to think that Longao was the second most powerful being in the chaos space. As for the other Dao confirming imperial ancestors, none of them dared to go against Longao anymore. One by one, they went into hiding. The chaos space was boundless. If Longao wanted to track them down, it wouldn't be an easy task. Longao had been cultivating in seclusion. Along with his breakthrough to the middle level of Dao confirming imperial ancestor, he had already formed a world territory within his body. If he wanted to continue breaking through, he would have to form a world territory cage with the power of the world territory. Forming a world territory cage with the world territory was easy to think about. However, cultivating it was extremely difficult. Otherwise, why would so many Dao confirming imperial ancestors be stuck at this stage, unable to break through, in the entire chaos space? Out of the 18 Dao confirming imperial ancestors, only 2 of them had managed to form a world territory cage. One was the god-slaying imperial ancestor, and the other was the Blood Abyss imperial ancestor. Longao let out a long sigh. He looked helpless. After cultivating in seclusion for hundreds of years, he still couldn't form a world territory cage. He didn't take the step back then, and he still couldn't succeed now. What should he do to successfully form a world territory cage from the world territory? Originally, he wanted to lock onto the soaring dragon starry sky. However, he helplessly found that ever since he broke through the 9 chaos channels of the soaring dragon starry sky, he couldn't lock onto the soaring dragon starry sky even if his cultivation had broken through to the middle level of Dao confirming imperial ancestor. If he hadn't broken the 9 chaos channels, he could have successfully locked onto the soaring dragon starry sky even if he had just left 1 chaos channel. However, he couldn't regret it now. After all, if he hadn't done that, his 2 unfilial disciples would have found the soaring dragon starry sky, and he would be in big trouble. P.S. Please support Little Nine's new book, Cultivation Rampage Upgrade. Little Nine, thanks. Chapter 34-38. The current Longao was simply depressed to the extreme. If a Tao-confirming Emperor ancestor could not lock onto Long-Tongue Starry Sky, then he would never be able to go back and reunite with his family, lover, and child. He shook his head helplessly. He did not continue to dwell on it. It was very difficult to break through to the high-level Tao-confirming Emperor ancestor just by cultivating in seclusion. Longao was very confident that he could kill any mid-level Tao-confirming Emperor ancestor with his current strength. However, he did not know if he could kill 2 high-level Tao-confirming Emperor ancestors. If he could break through to the high-level Tao-confirming Emperor ancestor from the mid-level, then he was confident that he could kill 2 high-level Tao-confirming Emperor ancestors. He was very helpless. As for the other mid-level Tao-confirming Emperor ancestors, since the last incident, all the Tao-confirming Emperor ancestors who were his enemies had gone into hiding. It was really impossible for him to lock onto their location. Big Brother Long, are you still worried about your breakthrough? Everyone was in seclusion to refine the Emperor ancestor's primordial spirit, except for Qin Shuang. How could Longao not know what Shuang was thinking? He was very touched. He nodded. I've been in seclusion for hundreds of years, but I still can't break through to the high-level Tao-confirming Emperor ancestor. Brother Long, your cultivation speed is already very fast. Don't push yourself too much. Why don't I accompany you and relax? Maybe you can break through unknowingly. All right. Longao took Qin Shuang to the 99 heavens of the Chaos Realm and began to relax. They strolled around one heavens after another. There was no hatred, no cultivation, and they were completely relaxed. Brother Long, why don't we go to the various starry skies and have a look? Okay. Ordinary martial artists could not enter the starry skies at all. After all, it would affect them. No martial artist would do something that would harm themselves. However, the situation of Tao-confirming Emperor ancestor was completely different. Longao and Qin Shuang did not deliberately go to any particular starry sky. Instead, they casually chose a starry sky and entered through the Chaos Channel. This is the immortal world starry sky. Longao was also very surprised because he had met Shuang and Nangong-yin in the immortal world starry sky. He had never expected. The two of them casually entered a starry sky, and it was the immortal world starry sky. In the starry skies of the immortal world, they were all cultivators, and there were countless cultivation worlds under the starry sky of the immortal world. It was a different cultivation system from the Tianwu continent. However, whether it was the soaring dragon starry sky where the sky martial continent was located or the immortal world starry sky, once one's cultivation reached a certain level, one would enter the primal chaos realm through the primal chaos channel. Brother Long, do you feel that something is wrong? Longao knew what Shuang meant. He nodded and said, You and I were able to enter the immortal realm among the countless children of the stars. Something is not right. Then what should we do now? Should I just leave? Longao waved his hand and smiled. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Since we're here in the immortal realm, let's take a stroll. Although he was curious, Longao did not take it to heart. With his current strength, the only person he was afraid of in the entire chaotic space was the primordial Tao Emperor ancestor, the legendary peak primordial Tao Emperor ancestor. Other than that, even if he encountered the god-slaying Emperor ancestor and the blood abyss Emperor ancestor, he was not afraid at all. He did not believe that there would be any danger that could threaten him. The two of them disguised themselves as the most ordinary cultivators and went wherever they wanted. Ever since the rise of the Tianwu continent, Longao had never had a day like this. He lived so comfortably without any burden. Brother Long, how great would it be if we could always be like this? Qin Shuang's face was full of happiness. She was about to call Tsang Lin and the others out, but Longao found that the girls seemed to be devouring and fusing very quickly after they went into seclusion. He did not have the heart to disturb them. Nodding with a smile, Longao said, "Don't worry, when my cultivation base breaks through to the primordial Tao Emperor Ancestor realm and my space-time divine ability reaches greater completion, we can be like this every day." Once his cultivation base breaks through to the primordial Tao Emperor Ancestor realm, he would be able to kill the Blood Abyss Emperor Ancestor. As for the legendary peak primordial Tao Emperor Ancestor, there was no enmity between him and the primordial Tao Emperor Ancestor. Unless the primordial Tao Emperor Ancestor had nothing to do, he believed that the primordial Tao Emperor Ancestor would not come looking for him for no reason. Qin Shuang smiled. Green Feather Immortal City was a very popular city in the immortal realm. Even the immortal emperors could see it here. The two of them walked, and unknowingly, they arrived at Green Feather Immortal City. In a tea shop. "Dear guests, are you from the outside world?" Longao was very curious. He nodded with a smile and said, "We just entered Green Feather Immortal City. As expected, if I'm not wrong, you two are here for the treasure." "What treasure?" Having said that, Longao took out a few immortal crystals from his bosom. No matter where he went, there was an unchanging principle. Money makes the world go round. Moreover, the waiter of the tea shop was so attentive that he only wanted to ask for immortal crystals. Chuckling, the waiter put away the immortal crystals and said, "Dear guests, a few months ago, a treasure appeared in Green Feather Peak behind Green Feather Immortal City. Countless immortal emperors, immortal sovereigns, and immortal emperors went there, but they still couldn't break the restriction of Green Feather Peak. According to the rumors, the treasure in Green Feather Peak is extraordinary." Longao was very surprised. He had some understanding of the ranks of the immortal realm. Immortal emperors, immortal sovereigns, and immortal sovereigns were the pinnacle existences in the immortal realm. According to the waiter, so many experts had attacked Green Feather Peak, but they still couldn't break the restriction. It seemed like the treasure in Green Feather Peak was really extraordinary. Longao didn't take it to heart. As his cultivation base had successfully broken through to the intermediate Tao Vindication Emperor Ancestor, he didn't care about ordinary treasures. After all, he could even kill an intermediate Tao Vindication Emperor Ancestor with his space-time divine ability. "Brother Long, why don't we go and have a look?" "You want to go?" "Yes, I want to go and have a look." He was very curious. Longao didn't expect that the two of them would be interested in the treasure of Green Feather Peak. However, he certainly wouldn't refuse. After drinking tea for a while, they immediately got up and rushed to Green Feather Peak. Longao's primordial spirit had already covered the entire immortal realm, let alone Green Feather Immortal City. The two of them seemed to be moving slowly, but in fact, they were moving very fast. In a short while, they had already arrived at their destination, Green Feather Peak. There were countless people in front of Green Feather Peak, each of them crazily attacking the restriction of Green Feather Peak. However, as the waiter of the tea shop said, no matter how they attacked, they couldn't break the restriction of Green Feather Peak. Chapter 34-39. Green Feather Peak. Longao did not care about anyone else as he glared at the peak before him. "Big Brother Long, what have you discovered?" "Follow me." Longao and Qin Shuang disappeared instantly. From the beginning till the end, no one had noticed that the two of them had appeared and disappeared once more. Within Green Feather Peak, it was a gigantic space that was filled with a grayish haze all around. The moment Qin Shuang stepped in, she felt a splitting headache, as though her entire body was about to explode. Longao was shocked as well, wondering what was going on with Qin Shuang. Given Qin Shuang's strength, to think that she could not withstand the space within Green Feather Peak in the immortal world, that was pretty comical. However, Longao did not dare to be careless. With a single thought, Qin Shuang's body disappeared and returned to his chaotic dantian. What is this place? What a strange space. Longao could feel the entire space that was filled with grayish air currents. There was an inexplicable feeling to it. This time around, he had entered the immortal world for no reason. Longao had a strange feeling about it. Under normal circumstances, There were countless of galaxies beneath the chaotic world. He had not entered any of them, and yet he had entered the immortal world. If someone were to say that there was nothing fishy about it, he would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Just what was going on? He could not figure it out. He really could not figure it out. However, at this moment, Longao's expression suddenly changed. His eyes began to slowly close. The surrounding airflow began to madly rush towards Longao. Gradually, a gigantic cocoon was formed. Within the cocoon, Longao seemed to have entered some sort of special environment to cultivate. This was something that even Longao had not expected. But whether it was good or bad, he did not know. Longao had gone through countless reincarnations and fused with the Chaos Treasure Chaos Hall to form his chaotic Danteon. All this while, Longao had not been able to truly control his chaotic Danteon. This was the most frustrating thing for Longao. But at this moment, the chaotic Danteon within Longao's body was sucking in all the air currents in the entire space. The speed at which it was devouring was way too fast. Huff huff, huff huff huff, huff huff huff. In the entire space, the grayish air currents were like moths to a flame, all of them surging into Longao's body. If it was someone else, even an intermediate Tao validation divine ancestor would not be able to withstand the terrifying airflow. While devouring, Longao's breakthrough to the intermediate Tao corroboration divine ancestor realm was slightly shaken. Joy immediately appeared on his face. The imperial ancestor realm was divided into 4 major realms. They were the elementary imperial ancestor realm, the intermediate imperial ancestor realm, the advanced imperial ancestor realm, and the peak imperial ancestor realm. Early stage Tao confirming sovereign ancestors controlled the power of the world. Mid-level Tao confirming emperor ancestors had mastered the power of the world domain. As for high-level Tao confirming emperors, they would form a world domain prison. The final step was to break through the world domain cage and become an emperor ancestor. As for what the legendary Tao sovereign realm was, no one in the primal chaos dimension knew, because no one had ever truly reached that realm. Even the Tao origin imperial ancestor, who had broken through to the peak imperial ancestor realm, did not know how to break through to the Tao sovereign realm. Otherwise, the Tao origin imperial ancestor would not have cultivated for so many years without being able to break through. Right now, Longao had only just formed his world domain and broke through to the intermediate Tao corroboration divine ancestor realm. Therefore, if he wanted to break through to the advanced Tao corroboration divine ancestor realm, he would have to form a world domain cage. It was easy to think about, but it was easier said than done to break through. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it. Among the 18 Tao corroboration divine ancestors, other than the Tao origin imperial ancestor, only the God Slayer imperial ancestor and the Blood Abyss imperial ancestor could form a world domain cage. The others could not do it at all. Longao's speed of devouring the airflow was getting faster and faster, and a whirlpool was forming in his Danteon. It was also at this moment that Longao truly mastered his chaotic Danteon. What a terrifying power! Feeling the terror of this power, Longao could not help but sigh. Even though he had already devoured this mysterious airflow, it was still extremely difficult to truly master it. The speed of his chaotic Danteon's devouring was still crazy. Even Longao did not know how long it would take for it to stop. In the chaotic space, the imperial ancestor of the god-slaying divine ancestor looked for Longao like a madman. However, he still could not find Longao's whereabouts. Gradually, some people began to realize that Longao had completely disappeared. What was going on? Everyone who had been hiding in the dark came out one by one, including the imperial ancestor of the Blood Abyss divine ancestor. He even thought that Longao knew that the imperial ancestor of the Tao origin divine ancestor was going to deal with him, so he had hidden himself. If that was the case, then things were going to get troublesome. Longao's talent was needless to say. Who knew if Longao would become an advanced Tao corroboration divine ancestor in the future? It was better to be safe than sorry. If Longao's cultivation had really advanced to the advanced Tao corroboration divine ancestor realm, then things would be really troublesome. However, the imperial ancestor of the blood abyss divine ancestor felt that he was overthinking it. Longao was able to break through to the intermediate Tao corroboration divine ancestor realm in such a short time. After all, Longao was an intermediate Tao corroboration divine ancestor realm 10,000 years ago. It was easier said than done to break through to the advanced Tao corroboration divine ancestor realm from the intermediate Tao corroboration divine ancestor realm. 10,000 years? A million years? 100 million years? 100 million years? Even if Longao was talented, he would not be able to break through without a long period of time. This was the law of cultivation. No matter how talented a person was, they could not go against it. As long as Longao dared to show himself, the imperial ancestor of the Tao, origin divine ancestor, could easily destroy Longao. At the peak of a mountain, blood abyss, I promise you that I will help you kill Longao. But you have to agree to two conditions. The imperial ancestor of the blood abyss divine ancestor did not speak. He had already asked the imperial ancestor of the Tao, origin divine ancestor, so he did not care whether God-slaying divine ancestor would help him or not. However, if God-slaying divine ancestor's conditions were reasonable, he would still agree. The reason was simple. The more people who helped, the more confident they would be. The first condition is that you have to help me find Longao as soon as possible. No problem. Blood Abyss agreed without even thinking. It was a joke. To him, this was not a condition at all. He also wanted to find Longao. If God-slaying divine ancestor helped him, he might be able to kill Longao. As for God-slaying divine ancestor, he was a little afraid. If Longao's cultivation really broke through to the Tao origin divine ancestor level, it would not be easy for him to kill Longao. Therefore, he had to deal with this person as soon as possible. As for the second condition, I need your chaos treasure. All right. God-slaying divine ancestor seemed to be a little stunned because he had asked for the treasure that Blood Abyss had obtained for many years. Blood Abyss had never let go of it. He did not expect that Blood Abyss would agree at this time. It seemed that Blood Abyss could not wait to get rid of Longao. P.S. Please support Little Joe's new book, Cultivation Rampage Upgrade. Bookmark it and vote for it. There are still 11 days left for the book. It has about 50,000 words. Chapter 3440. In the chaotic space, the winds and clouds changed. Everyone knew that with the rise of Longao's imperial ancestor, there would be a storm after the calm. Everyone knew that the God-slaying imperial ancestor and the Blood Abyss imperial ancestor had joined forces to hunt down Longao. Longao, who was originally very strong, had gone into hiding for some reason. Many people were very disappointed. Time flew by. 9,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. For 9,000 years, Longao had not appeared again. As long as one was not a fool, one could guess that Longao must have gone into hiding. The reason was simple. The Longao imperial ancestor was afraid. However, it made sense after thinking about it. No matter what, the Blood Abyss imperial ancestor and the God-slaying imperial ancestor were both high-level Tao, confirming imperial ancestors. How could Longao be a match for the two imperial ancestors when they joined forces? Not to mention Longao. Even if it were anyone else, they would have gone into hiding. It would be stupid to fight force with force. The God-slaying imperial ancestor and the Blood Abyss imperial ancestor were furious. After 9,000 years, they still could not locate Longao. This was not the way to go. Under such circumstances, the longer they delayed, the more disadvantageous it would be for them. No one knew why Longao's cultivation had broken through to the high-level Tao, confirming imperial ancestor level. Once he broke through, things would be troublesome. On the other hand, the Blood Abyss imperial ancestor was even more uneasy. Although the Tao origin imperial ancestor had agreed to help him deal with Longao, he did not know if the Tao origin imperial ancestor would really do it. Dao confirming imperial ancestor was uncertain, so he was afraid. That was why he had given his chaotic divine tool to the god-slaying imperial ancestor, hoping that they could join forces and kill Longao smoothly. But the result? After 9,000 years, they still could not locate Longao. Who knew where Longao was hiding? After all, the chaotic space was boundless. Blood abyss, what should we do now? If this continues, it will not be a solution. Quickly think of a way to lock onto Longao's position. Blood Abyss's face was gloomy and as ugly as it could be. How could he not want to lock onto Longao's position? Thinking about it was one thing, but actually locking onto it was very difficult. He sighed deeply. Xueming said helplessly, Godslayer, the chaotic space is too big. Even if you and I are high-level Dao-proving Emperor ancestors, it's hard to locate someone. Longao knows we want to deal with him. He must be hiding. How could Godslayer not know what the Blood Abyss Emperor meant? It was precisely because he knew that he was helpless to the extreme. What was the use of having the strength to kill Longao? They couldn't even find him. It was a pain in the ass to the extreme. Godslayer. If Longao hides in the primal chaos space, it will still be fine. We will always have a way to find Longao, just in case. What if what? As if he had guessed something, Godslayer's face darkened. Xueming's voice was very gloomy as he said, There are countless planes of space beneath the chaotic space. If Longao hides in one of these planes of space, we won't be able to track him down no matter what we do. Just as expected, Godslayer knew very well how serious the matter Xueming was talking about was. Although Dao-proving Emperor ancestors stood at the peak of the martial way, they were not omnipotent. Even they didn't know how many planes of space there were beneath the chaotic space. There were simply too many. Moreover, there were countless planes in each universe. Just thinking about it made them feel helpless. If Longao really hid in one of these planes, then things would be really troublesome. Even if the Dao origin Emperor ancestors personally searched for him, they wouldn't have the slightest bit of hope, let alone the two of them. For ordinary warriors, entering a plane of space from the chaotic space was very harmful to their cultivation. After a long time, their strength would drop drastically. However, once they succeeded in proving their Dao and became a Dao-proving Emperor warrior, entering a plane of space was not a problem at all. Moreover, they were Dao-proving Emperor ancestors. Looking at the endless void in the distance, their eyes grew colder and colder. Even so, they didn't choose to give up. At the peak of a towering mountain, the Dao origin Emperor ancestor sat quietly on the peak of the mountain, cross-legged. He had been cultivating in seclusion for 9,000 years. The strongest move he had touched upon was still not at the peak. However, he was confident that he would be able to perfect it in another 1,000 years. Opening his eyes, the Dao origin Emperor ancestor's mouth twitched as he muttered to himself, When I have comprehended this move, I will look for you. Space-time divine ability. It's really hard to imagine that someone could completely comprehend space-time divine ability. If I can obtain this divine ability, I might be able to successfully advance to the last step and become a legendary Dao-proving emperor. He was looking forward to it. When Xueming told him about this, the Dao origin Emperor ancestor almost couldn't help but attack Longao. He didn't care about Longao's life at all. Only the space-time divine ability in Longao's hands was something he wanted the most. The reason why he didn't attack was because he wasn't completely confident. If it was an ordinary intermediate Dao-proving Emperor ancestor, or even an advanced Dao-proving Emperor ancestor, he wouldn't hesitate to kill them. Only Longao was different. Although he had never seen Longao before, if this person could comprehend space-time divine ability, he would lose more than he gained if something unexpected happened. Chapter 34:41. Longao was still devouring madly. No one knew how long it would take. A total of 9,000 years had passed. Longao was also a little anxious. Unknowingly, another 800 years had passed. Longao suddenly opened his eyes and saw that the airflow in the entire space had disappeared and was devoured by him. Longao smiled helplessly. Although he had devoured the mysterious airflow, he could not completely control it. The most surprising thing was, after 9,800 years of devouring, Longao's cultivation had successfully broken through from the intermediate to the advanced Tao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. The world domain in his body had also successfully condensed into a world domain cage. He took a step forward. He left Qingyu Peak in an instant. Longao had a feeling that this airflow was the reason he had entered the immortal world's starry sky for no reason. Although it was a little unbelievable, it was the truth. "Brother Long, what's going on?" Longao did not hide anything from Qin Shuangshuang. He told her everything that had happened earlier in detail. Qin Shuangshuang was also a little surprised. She never thought that they had entered the immortal world's starry sky because of the airflow. It seemed that this airflow was not ordinary. "Brother Long, your cultivation has broken through to the advanced Tao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. In the entire chaos space, I'm afraid that no one can suppress you except for the Tao Origin Emperor." Nodding with a smile, Longao said confidently, "Next, I'm going to take revenge." As his cultivation had successfully broken through from the intermediate to the advanced Tao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, Longao was full of confidence. Other than the mysterious Tao Origin Emperor, he was not afraid of anyone else. God slaying Emperor Ancestor? Blood Abyss Emperor Ancestor? The two did not stay in the immortal world's starry sky. Longao and Qin Shuangshuang returned to the chaos space. As soon as he stepped in, Longao's face was unusually gloomy. Before entering the space, he first went to Soul Break Valley to see Duan Han. The result? "Duan Han, what's going on?" Duan Han's face was extremely pale. It was obvious that he had suffered serious injuries and could die at any time. He was even in danger of entering the cycle of reincarnation. What was going on? Now that Duan Han had successfully broken through to the Tao validation realm, no one could injure him unless they were a Tao validation heavenly venerate or a Tao validation great emperor. Qin Yuanzi? Listening to Duan Han's explanation, Longao finally understood what had happened. Qin Yuanzi was a complete realm great emperor expert. Unless a Tao confirming Emperor Ancestor descended, no one would be able to suppress him. Ever since Duan Han comprehended the power of the origin and became a peak martial artist, he could stay in the primal chaos space for a long time. Perhaps it was because he was too lucky. Around 9,500 years after Duan Han entered the primal chaos space, he actually found a forbidden area with treasures inside. Unfortunately, his opponent was Qin Yuanzi. With Qin Yuanzi's strength, he didn't even take Duan Han seriously. With just a casual move, he severely injured Duan Han. In order to keep this a secret, Qin Yuanzi would definitely cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. However, Duan Han had a secret technique that allowed him to escape at the cost of his own body. Even Qin Yuanzi didn't expect that a Tao validation martial artist could escape from under his nose. If it weren't for the treasures in the forbidden area, Qin Yuanzi would definitely have chased after him. With Qin Yuanzi's strength, it was obvious what it would mean if he chased after Duan Han. Longao did his best to help Duan Han recover. In just a few days, Duan Han had completely recovered, which was a pleasant surprise. After all, Duan Han had heard that Longao had become a Tao-confirming Emperor Ancestor. A super expert who had killed 7 Tao-confirming Emperor Ancestors in a row was more than enough to deal with a Tao-confirming Emperor Ancestor. Even a peak Tao-confirming Emperor Ancestor. "Let's go." Duan Han nodded and didn't refuse. He knew what Longao wanted him to do. With his talent and strength, it was almost impossible for him to take revenge. In this hopeless situation, he could only rely on Longao's strength. No one had discovered the mysterious place before. After all, the chaotic space was boundless. Even Tao-confirming Emperor Ancestors didn't know how big the chaotic space was, let alone ordinary people. There were countless forbidden areas in the chaotic space. As a peak Tao-confirming Emperor Ancestor, Qin Yuanzi stared at the forbidden area in front of him excitedly. He had never expected that there would be a legendary spiritual herb in the forbidden area. According to the legends, the emperor grass could help Tao confirming great emperors and Tao confirming emperor ancestor. If someone else found the emperor grass, it was easy to imagine what would happen. Fortunately, Qing Yuanzi had already found it. If it wasn't for the fact that the emperor grass hadn't matured yet, Qing Yuanzi would have already taken it. Qing Yuanzi. Qing Yuanzi suddenly turned around when he heard someone calling his name. He looked at the person coldly and said with a smile, "You really don't know anything. I didn't kill you back then, but you still dare to show up." With Longao by his side, Duan Hun sneered and coldly said, "I was the one who discovered this spiritual grass first. Moreover, back then, you severely injured me. I must properly settle this debt with you." "Ah! Ha 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 ha!" Qing Yuanzi laughed as if he had just heard the funniest thing in the world. He couldn't understand where this little Tao confirming cultivator got the courage to find trouble with him. Was he out of his mind? "Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Qing Yuanzi didn't take him seriously. Just as he was about to attack, Longao, who had been silent all this time, suddenly released a terrifying airflow that enveloped Qing Yuanzi. He had successfully broken through to Tao confirming emperor ancestor and had condensed a world domain in his body. A little peaked Tao confirming emperor ancestor couldn't break free from the world domain cage. World energy? You're a Tao confirming emperor ancestor? Qing Yuanzi was completely stunned when he felt the world energy enveloping him. He would never have thought that Duan Hun would have a Tao confirming emperor ancestor by his side. Looking at the entire chaotic space, there were a total of 18 sovereign ancestors. Sovereign ancestor Longao alone had killed 7 of them. His luck was really bad as he had bumped into one of the sovereign ancestors. Which Tao confirming emperor ancestor was he? Even now, Qing Yuanzi still couldn't figure out which Tao confirming emperor ancestor was. He couldn't figure it out no matter how hard he thought about it. To Qing Yuanzi, there was no difference between a Tao confirming emperor ancestor's world energy, world domain power, and world domain cage. P.S. Please support Xiao Jio's new book, Cultivation's Berserk Upgrade. Bookmark recommend. Xiao Jio thanks. Chapter 3442. Sir, I beg of you. I know I was wrong. Please let me go. Qing Yuanzi was no longer as arrogant as before. Facing a Tao confirming sovereign ancestor, even if it was an early-stage Tao confirming sovereign ancestor, he was no match for him. In the face of a Tao confirming sovereign ancestor, even a pinnacle Tao confirming emperor was nothing more than an ant. "Brother Long, leave this man to me." Brother Long? Could it be sovereign ancestor Longao? Qing Yuanzi was completely stunned. To his horror, he realized that not only could he not move his body, he could not even speak. A super powerful being who could kill 7 Tao confirming sovereign ancestors was more than enough to deal with him. Boom! 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 Qing Yuanzi was already caged by the world realm cage, unable to move at all. Duan Hun did not show any mercy as he began to kill Qing Yuanzi. Crack! The moment Qing Yuanzi's body exploded, Longao grabbed his essence spirit. Without any hesitation, he wiped out the consciousness of the essence spirit. Duan Hun consumed Qing Yuanzi's essence spirit first. Duan Hun knew that Qing Yuanzi's essence spirit was nothing to Longao. Therefore, he swallowed it and began to cultivate it within his body. Who knew how long it would take for one to reach the Tao confirming emperor realm under normal circumstances, especially if it was a pinnacle Tao confirming emperor realm. However, if he could consume the essence spirit of a pinnacle Tao confirming emperor realm, he would definitely be able to reach the Tao confirming emperor realm as long as he was not a useless piece of trash. As for how far he could go, that would depend on his luck. Faced with such a temptation, he would be lying if he said that he was not willing to take it. Given his relationship with Longao, there was no need for him to stand on ceremony. Duan Hun, based on my observations, this emperor grass will mature in at most 3 years. By then, you can harvest it and store it well. When your cultivation state reaches the Tao confirming Emperor realm, you can then consume this Emperor grass. If nothing goes wrong, your cultivation state will be able to reach the Tao confirming sovereign ancestor realm. Huh? Upon hearing Longao's words, Duan Hun was completely stunned. He could not believe it. He had already heard about the significance of the Emperor herb from Longao. It was a spiritual herb that all Tao-confirming great emperors yearned for. After all, once a Tao-confirming great emperors consumed the Emperor herb, their chances of successfully becoming a Tao-confirming great emperors would greatly increase. He never thought that Longao would give him the Emperor grass. "Brother Long," he waved his hand. Before Duan Hun could speak, Longao had already interrupted him. Of course, he knew what Duan Hun wanted to say. He smiled. Longao smiled and said, "Duan Hun, we're friends, so there's no need for words. I no longer need the imperial grass, but it is very useful to you." He looked at Longao in front of him. Duan Hun nodded in the end. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. The moment the Emperor grass matured, Longao plucked it and said with a smile, "Take good care of it." "Thank you." Longao didn't continue to stay. After separating from Duan Hun, he first went to the sky-devouring peak to see how the young master's breakthrough was going. In the main hall, great imperial ancestor Tun Yun is still cultivating in seclusion. Even I, as his father, don't know what cultivation realm he has broken through to. Tun Yun was about to head to the place where he was cultivating in seclusion to call his son out. After all, Longao's status and strength were no longer the same as before. When Tun Yun thought about how Longao had killed 7 Tao, confirming great emperors by himself, he felt a chill down his spine. However, Longao stopped Tun Yun from doing so. "It's all right. I'm just passing by to take a look. Since that's the case, I'll take my leave first." Longao stood up and cupped his fists. He turned around and left. He took a step forward and instantly disappeared without a trace. Tun Yun stood up respectfully to send him off. His son and Longao were friends, but he didn't dare to act rashly. With Longao's current strength, killing him would be a piece of cake. After leaving Tun Yun Peak, Longao began to target the people who had been his enemies in the past. He killed them one by one without any mercy. In his opinion, even if he killed all the Tao-confirming great emperors, it had nothing to do with him. It was a good opportunity for his people to devour the primordial spirits of the imperial ancestors. "Brother Long, we haven't seen each other for almost 10,000 years. I didn't expect to see you here today." Longao smiled when he saw the imperial ancestor Shenwu. Coincidence? That was nonsense. Obviously, the imperial ancestor Shenwu had come to find him on purpose. Longao had a good impression of the imperial ancestor Shenwu. They weren't just friends. Back then, many imperial ancestors had joined forces to deal with him, but the imperial ancestor Shenwu hadn't. In any case, the imperial ancestor Shenwu was only a mid-level Tao-confirming great emperor. With the suppression of the imperial ancestor Shenwu, the other Tao-confirming great emperors didn't dare to go against him. Only the imperial ancestor Shenwu wasn't afraid of the imperial ancestor Shenwu. Longao was touched by this friendship. After all, not everyone dared to go against the imperial ancestor Shenwu's will. Without saying anything else, Longao smiled and said, "Brother Shenwu, please." "Please." Shenwu Peak. Longao and the imperial ancestor Shenwu sat down facing each other. The imperial ancestor said with a serious expression, "Brother Long, back then, you killed 7 Tao-confirming great emperors by yourself. You were famous in the world, but during the years that you disappeared, the imperial ancestor Shenwu was also looking for you." The imperial ancestor Shenwu? Why was the imperial ancestor Shenwu looking for him? There was no enmity between him and the imperial ancestor Shenwu. They didn't even know each other. They had only heard about each other. Back then, the imperial ancestor Shenwu didn't do anything. So, why was the imperial ancestor Shenwu looking for him? The imperial ancestor Shenwu seemed to know what Longao was thinking. He didn't wait for Longao to ask and continued. Ever since you killed the 7 Tao confirming great emperors, everyone in the primal chaos space has been saying that you're the second strongest person in the primal chaos space. Only the legendary Imperial Ancestor Shenwu can suppress you. Longao didn't say anything, he just listened quietly. The Imperial Ancestor Shenwu likes to fight just like me. However, he can't tolerate other people. When he heard that you're the second strongest person, he couldn't accept it. That's why he's been looking for you, wanting to fight you to see who's the real second strongest person. I see. Longao had heard a thing or two about the Imperial Ancestor Shenwu. The Imperial Ancestor Shenwu couldn't tolerate other people and was also afraid of them. If the Imperial Ancestor Shenwu hadn't broken through to the peak, the Imperial Ancestor Shenwu peak, he would have directly challenged the Imperial Ancestor Shenwu peak. Longao was certain that if the Imperial Ancestor Shenwu peak found him and they fought, the Imperial Ancestor Shenwu peak would kill him without hesitation. Longao's eyes became colder and colder. He suddenly smiled and said, "Brother Shenwu, please help me spread a message. Go ahead. Spread the news that I'm at the Shenwu peak." Chapter 3443. Shenwu wasn't a fool. How could he not understand Longao intention? He was shocked. Shenwu still didn't know that Longao was already a high-level Imperial Ancestor. "Brother Long, even though I know you hate them, it's better to endure it for now. You can decide what to do after you've achieved the Tao Monarch realm. What do you think?" Longao smiled. Shenwu was indeed a friend worth befriending. "I'm confident." Seeing that Longao had made up his mind, Shenwu didn't say anything else. He nodded and left the Divine Martial Peak. In just 3 days, the news of Longao's presence on the Divine Martial Peak had spread throughout the chaotic space. Many people were shocked, because in the past 10,000 years, both Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor and Godslayer Imperial Ancestor had been searching for Longao. It was obvious what the two high-level Imperial Ancestors wanted to do. Longao's sudden appearance and facing 2 Imperial Ancestors at the same time meant that he was doomed. That was why many martial artists, heavenly venerables, and great emperors began to rush to the Divine Martial Peak. They wanted to see how the 2 high-level Imperial Ancestors would deal with Longao. Longao's Imperial Ancestor was also a fierce man. With his own strength, he was able to kill 7 Tao confirming sovereign ancestors. Thinking about it, one would know how brave and fierce sovereign ancestor Longao was. The Divine Martial Peak. The crowd was moving, but no one dared to take a step inside, especially the ordinary Tao confirming martial artists. If they were caught in the crossfire, they could imagine what the consequences would be. Imperial Ancestor Skybreaker, Imperial Ancestor Yao Ji, Imperial Ancestor Purple Blood, Imperial Ancestor Devourer, and Heaven-Shrouding Imperial Ancestor followed Godslayer and Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor to the Divine Martial Peak. Blood Abyss looked at the huge peak in front of him with a gloomy face. "Godslayer, I don't know why, but I have a feeling that something is wrong. Do you think the Divine Martial Peak is a trap and Longao deliberately led us here?" Godslayer sneered, looking down on Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor. Not only was this person cautious, he was also as timid as a mouse. Godslayer sneered, "If you're afraid, then leave first. I alone am more than enough to deal with an intermediate Tao confirming Imperial Ancestor." Xueming's heart was in a mess. He felt more and more that something was wrong. Xueming, who had always been cautious, nodded and said, "I'm not feeling well, so I'll leave first." Everyone looked on in disbelief. Blood Abyss turned around, took a step forward, and disappeared without a trace. Huh! Had the Blood Abyss Emperor really left? It wasn't just the others. Even the god-slaying Imperial Ancestor hadn't expected Blood Abyss to actually leave. What a piece of trash. Everyone despised Imperial Ancestor Xueming. Although Imperial Ancestor Longao was very strong, he was still only an intermediate Imperial Ancestor. The difference between an intermediate and advanced Tao validation Imperial Ancestor was too great. In the face of absolute power, Everything else was fleeting. The god-slaying imperial ancestor didn't hesitate. He looked at the Shinwu peak in front of him and shouted, "Longao, come out and accept your death. Longao, come out and accept your death." The god-slaying imperial ancestor's voice rolled out and spread everywhere. Everyone who was watching the show was shocked. As expected of an advanced Tao confirming imperial ancestor. Just the sound wave alone could almost kill an ordinary Tao confirming imperial ancestor. As expected of the god-slaying imperial ancestor, one of the two high-level imperial ancestors. Not only the others, but even the 5 Tao confirming imperial ancestors looked at the god-slaying imperial ancestor with fear. The difference between an intermediate Tao confirming imperial ancestor and an advanced Tao confirming imperial ancestor was like heaven and earth. Even if the 5 of them worked together, they wouldn't be a match for the god-slaying imperial ancestor. This was the strength of an advanced Tao confirming imperial ancestor. At this moment, Longao and Shinwu floated out and came before the crowd. Longao smiled and said, "If I'm not wrong, you should be the legendary god-slaying imperial ancestor." Even the Longao from 10,000 lifetimes ago had never seen the god-slaying imperial ancestor. He had only heard of him. If it were in the past, he might have been afraid of the imperial ancestor. But now, the situation was completely different. Now that he had successfully broken through to the advanced Tao confirming imperial ancestor, he was confident that he could defeat the god-slaying imperial ancestor. Longao, 10,000 years ago, you killed 7 Tao confirming imperial ancestors alone and were known as the second strongest person in the chaos space. Today, I want to see how strong you are. But since you've been hiding for 10,000 years, I hope you won't run away again. Ha ha ha. He laughed maniacally. It wasn't just the god-slaying imperial ancestor. The other Tao confirming imperial ancestors were the same. Their laughter was filled with endless mockery. The fact that the imperial ancestor Longao had been hiding for 10,000 years had spread throughout the chaos space. Everyone knew about it. Because of this, everyone guessed that the imperial ancestor Longao must be afraid of the god-slaying imperial ancestor. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone into hiding. But many people couldn't figure out why the imperial ancestor Longao, who had been hiding all this time, would suddenly appear on Shinwu Peak. It was really strange. God-slaying, you want to challenge me? Ha! Longao, I'll give you a chance on account of the fact that it's not easy for you to cultivate. As long as you choose to submit to me, I'll spare your life. Imperial ancestor Shinwu didn't say anything from the beginning. Although he wasn't afraid of death, he didn't want to say anything in front of a high-level Tao confirming imperial ancestor. But as long as the god-slaying imperial ancestor and the others surrounded Longao, he wouldn't hesitate to attack. Longao already knew what imperial ancestor Shinwu wanted. So before he came out, he had warned Shinwu not to attack no matter what. Longao knew very well that as long as Shinwu didn't attack, the god-slaying imperial ancestor wouldn't lower himself to deal with him. As for the other Tao confirming imperial ancestors, Shinwu's strength was enough to deal with them. As long as he could kill the god-slaying imperial ancestor and the blood abyss imperial ancestor, no one in the chaos space would be able to threaten Shinwu except the Tao origin imperial ancestor. It was really strange that he only saw the god-slaying imperial ancestor and the others, but not the blood abyss imperial ancestor. Longao smiled mockingly and said, "God-slaying, I'm very curious. You and blood abyss worked together to find me. Now that I've appeared, why are you the only one here? Where is blood abyss?" Longao wasn't the only one who was curious. Even imperial ancestor Shinwu was a little surprised. Under normal circumstances, blood abyss imperial ancestor and the god-slaying imperial ancestor should have locked onto Longao's position for 10,000 years. Now that Longao had appeared, there was no doubt that the god-slaying imperial ancestor would come as well. But what was the result? Now, they only saw the god-slaying imperial ancestor and not the blood abyss imperial ancestor. It was really strange. P.S. Please support Little Nine's new book, Cultivation Rampage, and recommend it. Chapter 3444. Thinking of Xue Ming, that coward, Godslayer felt an indescribable sense of disdain and mockery. But more than that, he was angry. They had agreed to fight Longao together, but at this critical moment, he had chosen to retreat. How disgusting. Godslayer did not give Xue Ming any face. He sneered. Xue Ming is afraid, so he left first. A high-level Dao, proving realm imperial ancestor, suddenly felt unwell? It was simply impossible. It was too ridiculous. Longao was also stunned. Xue Ming was afraid? It was exactly like Xue Ming's personality. He was timid and extremely cautious. He did not have the aggressiveness that a high-level Dao proving realm imperial ancestor should have. Even a low-level Dao proving realm imperial ancestor would not be so cautious, let alone a high-level Dao proving realm imperial ancestor. However, after thinking about it, he understood. When he had fought with Xue Ming for the Enchantress, he had only been a mid-level Dao proving realm imperial ancestor. With Xue Ming's strength, he could have dealt with him. But in the end, Xue Ming did not do it himself. Instead, he instigated the other imperial ancestors to join forces against him. It was clear how cautious Xue Ming was. He had thought that both of them would come, so he could take advantage of this opportunity to kill Godslayer and Xue Ming in one fell swoop. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots to prevent future troubles. Now it seemed almost impossible. However, Longao was not worried. Anyway, with his current strength, he could kill any high-level Dao proving realm imperial ancestor. He would kill Godslayer first, then go find Xue Ming. Longao, are you ready? You talk too much. Godslayer's face darkened, and his murderous aura condensed. At this moment, a sword appeared in Godslayer's hand. He smiled and said, "This is a divine sword I obtained 10,000 years ago. You will be the first to die under its sword." In order to deal with Longao, Xue Ming did not hesitate to take out the chaotic divine weapon he had obtained. No one knew the origin of this sword, but it was needless to say how powerful it was. Otherwise, Godslayer would not have wanted it so much. With this divine sword, not to mention dealing with an intermediate Dao confirming imperial ancestor, even if he faced an imperial ancestor of the same level, he could easily kill him. Space-time restriction. Under Godslayer's gaze, he found that his body was restricted. That's right, prohibited. Previously, he had already heard that Longao had already comprehended space-time divine ability. However, hearing about it was one thing, truly seeing it was another. However, it had to be said that Godslayer was indeed very powerful. With the divine sword in his hand, he broke through the space-time restriction in an instant. Even so, he was still scared. Now, the god-slaying imperial ancestor finally knew why Longao was able to fight against 7 imperial ancestors alone and even kill them. Not to mention Longao's strength. Longao's space-time divine ability alone was enough for him to dominate mid-level Dao, confirming emperors. It was a terrifying divine ability. According to legends, space-time was the most powerful force in the primordial space. Even the primordial Dao Emperor ancestor had just touched upon this divine ability. It was hard to imagine that Longao, who was only a mid-level primordial Dao Emperor ancestor, could comprehend such a domineering divine ability. As for the purpose of killing a god, in addition to wanting to fight Longao to regain his reputation as the second in the primordial space, the biggest reason was that Godslayer wanted to subdue Longao and obtain this heaven-defying divine ability. Godslayer even had a feeling that if he could successfully obtain this space-time divine ability, he might be able to advance to a high-level Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. If that was the case, then Godslayer was very confident that even the primordial Dao Emperor Ancestor would not be his opponent. Space-time divine ability. The more he thought about it, the more he could not wait to obtain this heaven-defying space-time divine ability. How could Longao not know what Godslayer meant? That was why he was ready to kill Godslayer directly. If it was just a challenge, Longao would not have killed him. Since Godslayer wanted to seize his divine ability and kill him, he did not have to be polite. Longao knew how powerful Godslayer was, but he did not think that he could kill him in an instant. He sneered. A huge world domain cage began to surge out. Everyone, including Godslayer, was completely stunned when they sensed the terrifying aura. Everyone knew what the world domain cage meant. It was a power that only high-level Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestors, could possess. There were 4 levels of Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestors. They were Elementary Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, Intermediate Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, Advanced Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, and Peak Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. Elementary Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, possessed the power of the world. A mid-level Dao validation Imperial Ancestor could condense world energy and form a world domain. This was a powerful ability unique to mid-level Dao validation Imperial Ancestor. In front of a mid-level Dao validation Imperial Ancestor, a low-level Dao validation Imperial Ancestor could not resist at all. Advanced Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, could condense the world domain again and form a world domain cage. The world domain cage could imprison any Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. As for the Peak Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, they could directly break the world domain cage. Now, Godslayer finally knew why he could not imprison his opponent when he released his world domain cage. It turned out that his opponent had also condensed the world domain cage and became an advanced Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. That was the reason. Godslayer finally understood why Longao, who had been hiding for 10,000 years, would appear here for no reason. Just as Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor had said, it was Longao who had deliberately set up a trap to lure him here. It was hard to imagine that Longao had only used 10,000 years to smoothly break through from an intermediate Dao Sovereign Ancestor to an advanced Dao Sovereign Ancestor. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed it was true even if he was beaten to death. It was unbelievable. Even so, what could he do? Although Longao had successfully broken through to the advanced Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor, Godslayer was also an advanced Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor. Moreover, he had the Divine Sword. His chances of winning were still 80%. Godslayer was very confident. However, the 5 intermediate Dao confirming Imperial Ancestors were completely dumbfounded. Previously, when Longao was only an intermediate Dao confirming Imperial Ancestor, he was able to instantly kill 7 Dao confirming Imperial Ancestors, let alone the current Longao. If he wanted to kill them, it would be a matter of minutes. Under such circumstances, it would be a lie to say that they were not afraid. They only hoped that Godslayer's Imperial Ancestor could successfully kill Longao. Otherwise, if Longao managed to escape, it would mean a lot. Godslayer released the world domain cage again, and the divine sword in his hand began to emit sword cries. Chapter 34:45. At the beginning, Godslayer's confidence was inflated because he thought that it would be easy to kill Longao since he had already mastered the divine sword, even though Longao had become an advanced sovereign ancestor. But what was the result? As the battle continued to escalate, Godslayer finally began to realize that his opponent was not using his full strength. Although he did not want to believe it, the truth was right in front of him. Longao, are you looking down on me? Longao looked at his opponent with a smile. Indeed, he had not used his full strength. It was like a cat chasing a mouse. As his cultivation base progressed smoothly from an intermediate sovereign ancestor to an advanced sovereign ancestor, no one was his match unless he encountered a sovereign ancestor of the origin Dao. He was very confident in his own strength. Godslayer, you're also a battle maniac. I will let you die under my strongest move. Strongest move? Godslayer did not know why, but when he heard Longao's words, he looked at the young man in front of him and could not help but shudder. His opponent's strength had far exceeded his understanding. He sighed deeply in his heart. Longao, if you want to kill me, let's see if you have the ability to do so. Godslayer was still unwilling to believe that he was not his opponent. After roaming the chaotic space for so many years, he was not afraid even when facing the sovereign ancestor of the Blood Abyss. Throughout the entire chaotic space, he was invincible unless he encountered a sovereign ancestor of the Origin Tao. Longao sneered. The people who were watching the battle sighed. Within 10,000 years, he had successfully broken through to an advanced sovereign ancestor. Such talent was unparalleled in the entire chaotic space. It was hard to imagine if Longao could successfully break through to the peak and become a sovereign ancestor if he was given another 10,000 years with such heaven-defying talent. Longao had now comprehended the third move, space-time reincarnation. This move was formed by combining space-time and reincarnation. Longao was confident that even a sovereign ancestor would find it difficult to resist this move. After all, this move was too powerful. He might not be able to kill the god-slaying Imperial Ancestor with the strength of a mid-level Tao Corroboration Imperial Ancestor. However, now that his cultivation base had successfully broken through to the high-level Supreme Tao Affirmation Tao Emperor Ancestor, Longao was completely confident that he could kill his opponent in an instant with this move. Inside the chaotic Dantian, Yun Shi, Yun Xian, Ling Ruoi, Han Song Lin, and Qin Shuang did not cultivate in seclusion because they knew that Longao was fighting against the god-slaying royal ancestor. Even though they knew that Longao's cultivation had broken through to the high-level Tao sovereign ancestor realm and was no longer afraid of the god-slaying sovereign ancestor. As his women, the 6 women were still worried. Sister Shuang, will Brother Long win? Qin Shuang was very worried, but she said, "Don't you believe in Brother Long's strength? Big Brother Long told me that the space-time reincarnation that he comprehended can instantly kill an intermediate Tao validation sovereign ancestor. He's not afraid even if the primordial Tao sovereign ancestor comes." Is that true? Everyone was well aware of the difference between an advanced Tao confirming royal ancestor and a peak Tao confirming royal ancestor. However, there was no enmity between Big Brother Long and the Tao origin royal ancestor. Unless the Tao origin royal ancestor was bored out of his mind, he wouldn't attack Big Brother Long. There was no doubt about it. While the girls were worried, Longao used space-time reincarnation. Space began to twist and distort. Space-time power spread out. Godslayer looked on in shock as space-time power locked onto him. Crack! A loud sound rang out. Slayer God watched in disbelief as his body was torn apart. His primordial spirit left his body. As long as his primordial spirit was not destroyed, he could be reborn. Even if his primordial spirit entered the cycle of reincarnation, as long as the cycle of reincarnation awakened his primordial spirit, he could still be reborn. After breaking through to the royal ancestor realm, his god-slaying primordial spirit was infinitely close to being indestructible. He was confident that Longao alone couldn't truly destroy his primordial spirit. There was no doubt about this. Longao, just you wait till the day I'm reborn from slaying God. That will be the day I destroy you. Ha! Ha 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 ha! With a burst of laughter, just as Godslayer was about to escape, the situation suddenly changed. Before Longao could do anything, the space around Slayer God started to tremble. Suddenly, a giant black hole appeared, and a giant hand appeared. Xueming, you actually dared to take advantage of the situation. Ah! Godslayer was filled with boundless anger. He had never imagined that Xueming, who had left, would suddenly return and take advantage of the situation. If Godslayer had been at his peak, he wouldn't have been afraid of Xueming. However, the situation was completely different now. How could a mere primordial spirit be a match for Xueming? Xueming's huge hand grabbed the Slayer God's primordial spirit as Xueming laughed maniacally. Ha! Ha ha! Ha ha! Everyone, including the royal ancestor Shenwu, was completely stunned. Xueming's sudden attack had taken everyone by surprise. Before this, everyone knew that the royal ancestor Xueming and the royal ancestor Xueming were in cahoots. The biggest possibility was that Slayer God's primordial spirit had escaped and returned to look for Longao after he was reborn. Longao's face was extremely grim right now. He realized that he had still underestimated Xueming. It wasn't just him. It seemed like everyone in the entire chaos space had underestimated this cautious coward. Xueming had hidden himself really well. No one could discover his true strength. After all, for him to be able to appear without anyone noticing and twist the space-time, that in itself meant that Xueming's strength was way above Slayer God's. Space-time mystic skill. So, you've already comprehended the space-time mystic skill. Longao's voice was serious. He knew clearly what it meant for Xueming to have comprehended the space-time mystic skill. After all, he had thought that he was the only one in the entire chaos space who had comprehended the space-time mystic skill. But he had not expected that Xueming, who had always been as timid as a mouse, would have comprehended the same heaven-defying mystic skill and mastered the power of space-time as well. Otherwise, Xueming would not have been able to twist the space-time and forcefully grab hold of Slayer God's primordial spirit right in front of him. Longao, wait till I devour Slayer God's primordial spirit and break through to become a royal ancestor. I'll definitely come back to look for you. You and I have both comprehended the space-time mystic skill. Later on, I'll let you know what an ant is in the face of true power. Ha! Ha ha ha! With a burst of laughter, the black hole began to slowly merge back together, and everything returned to normal. Everyone knew that Xueming had left with Slayer God's primordial spirit. Longao did not chase after him. If Xueming had not comprehended the space-time mystic skill, it would have been impossible for him to capture Slayer God's primordial spirit right in front of him. But since Xueming had comprehended the space-time mystic skill, it was a different matter altogether. Chapter 3446. Seeing the death of the god-slaying Imperial Ancestor. The rest of the Imperial Ancestors quickly ran away. What a joke! With Longao's valiant strength, wanting to kill them was simply a matter of minutes. Only Yao Ji did not leave. Instead, she looked at Longao in front of her. She never thought that Longao would successfully become a high-level Imperial Ancestor in just 10,000 years. It was unbelievable. Why don't you leave? Yao Ji stared at him. Longao, why should I run? With your current strength, if you want to kill us, they won't have any chance to escape. Even Shun Wu was curious, let alone Yao Ji. According to the grudge between Longao and the remaining Imperial Ancestors, Longao would definitely not let them go. But the result? Longao let these people leave and did not make a move. What was going on? Shun Wu could not figure it out. You can go. Longao did not want to explain too much. His cultivation had successfully become a high-level Imperial Ancestor. His state of mind began to change slowly. If he encountered the same enemy again, he did not have such a strong desire to kill them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it. They would not have been able to escape. Yao Ji seemed to want to say something, but in the end, she swallowed her words. She turned around and left quickly, disappearing without a trace. Divine Martial Peak. The battle at Divine Martial Peak was completely famous in the chaotic space. Everyone was talking about it. After all, Longao had killed the god-slaying Imperial Ancestor, and Xueming had come out to take advantage of it. It was unbelievable. In other words, in the chaotic space, besides the Daoyuan Imperial Ancestor, the most powerful people were Imperial Ancestor Xueming and Longao. Both of them had comprehended space-time superpower. Brother Long, Xueming has been hiding his strength for so many years. Even the Daoyuan Imperial Ancestor had just touched the space-time superpower. I did not expect Xueming to comprehend it too. Shun Wu was still a little stunned. As a Dao Imperial Ancestor, he knew very well what space-time superpower meant. Legend had it that space-time superpower was the most powerful power in the chaotic space. Even a peak Dao Imperial Ancestor might not be able to comprehend it. To comprehend space-time superpower, it did not depend on one's level, but on one's luck. Take Longao, for example. Longao had only been an intermediate-level Dao validation imperial ancestor, while Xueming had been an advanced-level Dao validation imperial ancestor. Both of them had comprehended space-time divine power. On the other hand, imperial ancestor Dao Yuan was a peak imperial ancestor, but he had only touched upon space-time divine power. From this, one could imagine how powerful space-time abilities were. Longao's expression was grave. He knew what it meant for the Netherblood Emperor to have comprehended space-time combat arts. Things were getting troublesome. In the beginning, everyone believed that blood-profound imperial ancestor was very cautious and even cowardly. Therefore, they all believed that Godslayer imperial ancestor was stronger than blood-profound imperial ancestor. But what was the result? Xueming had been hiding his strength all this time. Not only was he far more powerful than the god-slaying imperial ancestor, but he had also comprehended space-time magic. Shenwu, this has nothing to do with you. Hide immediately. Shenwu nodded. How could he not know what Longao meant? Xueming had already shown his strength. Given his relationship with Longao, blood-profound imperial ancestor would definitely come to deal with him. I will. However, since Xueming has taken away Godslayer's primordial spirit, there are only two options. Please tell me. The first option is that Xueming will help Godslaying and subdue Godslaying. That way, he'll have a high-level imperial ancestor as a slave. If I were him, I would choose that option, said Xueming. Longao nodded. Not to mention Shenwu. He believed that no matter who it was, even if he were in Xueming's shoes, he would make the same choice. No one would refuse to subdue an advanced-level Dao validation imperial ancestor as a slave unless they were crazy. Shenwu's expression was grave as he continued. However, Xueming has another option, which is to directly devour Godslayer's primordial spirit. You should know that Godslayer is an advanced-level Dao validation imperial ancestor. If he devours Godslayer's primordial spirit, there is a 50% chance that he will break through to the peak and become an imperial ancestor. Longao understood what Shenwu meant. He was also afraid of this. If Xueming really took the risk to devour Godslayer's primordial spirit, the chances of him breaking through would be too high. Even if there was only a 50% chance, once Xueming successfully broke through to the peak and became an imperial ancestor, even the primordial Dao validation imperial ancestor would be no match for him. However, Xueming had already comprehended space-time magic. He was like Xueming. With the help of space-time magic, he could easily destroy an expert of the same level. It was one thing to be afraid of Xueming, but now he was powerless. Since Xueming had successfully taken away Godslayer's primordial spirit, he would not appear until he devoured Godslayer's primordial spirit. It was almost impossible to find traces of Xueming's imperial ancestor in the vast chaotic space. Longao did not chase after him. It would be a waste of time. Longao was so upset that he did not continue to stay on the Divine Martial Peak. Shenwu hurriedly left the Divine Martial Peak in order to avoid Xueming. He planned to hide first. This way, it would not be easy for Xueming to find him. However, as soon as Shenwu left the Divine Martial Peak, he was targeted by Xueming. He was afraid of Longao, so Xueming did not immediately attack. He waited quietly. When he was sure that Longao was very far away from them, Xueming suddenly released a terrifying power. Xueming! Shenwu stared at Xueming in front of him. Although he had guessed it, he did not expect Xueming's hiding skills to be so heaven-defying. Not only had he not discovered him, but even Longao had not discovered him. He was not afraid of Xueming. Shenwu knew that his strength alone was not enough to fight against Xueming. It was a joke. Not only was Xueming a high-level imperial ancestor, he had even comprehended space-time mystic arts. It was obvious what this meant. Shenwu, don't worry. I will kill you in front of Longao personally. Ha ha, ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Xueming raised his head and laughed madly. Shenwu's face grew darker and darker. He stared at Xueming. Suddenly, Shenwu began to laugh. What are you laughing at? You are about to die. That's right, Shenwu. I forgot to tell you a piece of bad news. Your primordial spirit has no chance of entering reincarnation. Using my space-time mystic arts, I will devour your primordial spirit directly. Not only Longao and Ming, but even Xinwu knew that a martial artist who had comprehended space-time mystic arts could easily destroy a primordial spirit and prevent it from entering reincarnation. They could even use space-time mystic arts to devour a primordial spirit completely. This was the terror of space-time mystic arts. Chapter 3447. Ming, how dare you? Sensing that Ming was dealing with Shun Wu in the distance, Longao was enraged. With an endless killing intent, Longao rushed over at his fastest speed. He valued Shun Wu as a friend. It was because of him that Shun Wu was in this predicament. If Shun Wu was really killed by Ming, he would regret it for the rest of his life. If it was Ming from before, Longao would not be worried. But things were different now. Ming had not only hidden his strength, he had even comprehended the space-time mystic skill. Under such circumstances, unless he could arrive instantly, Shun Wu would definitely die. Fast. It was a race against time. Ha ha. Ha ha. Ha ha ha. Ming laughed maniacally. In his hands, Shun Wu did not even have a chance to fight back. Boom. There was a loud explosion. Ming's fist landed on Shun Wu's body. His physical body was destroyed, and even his essence spirit was caught by Ming in his hands. Not long later, Longao's figure finally appeared. However, he did not attack immediately. Instead, he glared at Shun Wu, suppressing the endless killing intent in his heart. He said coldly, "Let go of Shun Wu, and I can let bygones be bygones." "You're negotiating with me?" Longao did not say anything. He merely glared coldly. He did not dare to move. In this situation, he was in a passive position. As long as Ming wanted to, he could kill Shun Wu anytime. For most Tao-proving royal ancestors, even if they were at the peak of the righteous path, they could only kill Shun Wu. It was almost impossible to kill his essence spirit completely. If it was possible, he would not have been suppressed for so long back then. At the end of the day, when one's cultivation base broke through to the Tao-proving royal ancestor realm, his essence spirit would be infinitely close to being indestructible. But there were exceptions to everything. Take himself, for example. As his strength increased and he mastered the space-time mystic skill, not only could he kill Tao-proving royal ancestors, he could even destroy their essence spirits completely. Whatever he could do, Ming could do as well. This was the heaven-defying power of the space-time mystic skill. Longao was truly afraid now. Shun Wu couldn't speak. His primordial spirit could only glare viciously at Ming. He didn't even have the chance to self-destruct in the face of such a powerful space-time ability. Longao, with the primordial spirits of Shun Wu and Xinsha, I can definitely become a peak Tao sovereign ancestor. Once I break through, do you think you'll still be my opponent? There was no doubt about it. Longao was fully confident that he could fight the primordial Tao Emperor ancestor with his mastery of space-time mystic powers. The only exception was the Blood Nether Imperial ancestor. Even now, Luo Yunyang wasn't confident that he could defeat Ming, let alone after he had broken through. Longao was almost certain that if Ming really devoured their primordial spirits and successfully broke through to the peak of the Tao validation realm, he would definitely not be a match for him. Longao remained silent. Longao, I'll give you a chance. If you choose to submit, you'll be mine after I become a peak sovereign ancestor and kill Tao Yuan. Die. This time, Longao didn't wait for Ming to continue speaking. It was a joke if Ming wanted him to submit. Even if his primordial spirit was destroyed and completely disappeared, he wouldn't choose to submit. He didn't even need to think about it. He threw out a punch. Longao no longer had any scruples because he knew very well that if he attacked, Shun Wu might still be saved. If he didn't attack and let Ming do whatever he wanted, Shun Wu would have no chance at all. Ming was obviously stunned. He didn't expect Luo Yunyang to really attack. He was stunned for a moment and directly devoured Shun Wu's primordial spirit. I'll destroy you." Seeing that Xueming had really devoured Shun Wu's primordial spirit, Longao was completely enraged. As Shun Wu's friend, not only did he fail to protect Shen Wu, but he also brought a destructive disaster to Shen Wu. He blamed himself and felt guilty. If it weren't for him, Shen Wu wouldn't have died. Even his primordial spirit wouldn't have been devoured by Xueming. This wasn't an ordinary devouring. Shen Wu would have been completely destroyed. Even a peak Dao validation realm sovereign ancestor wouldn't be able to come back to life. He was thoroughly enraged. With an endless killing intent, Longao began to attack the other party wildly. Space-time seal, space-time rewind. Longao and Xueming used their space-time mystic skills at the same time. Both of them had comprehended space-time mystic skills. The two strongest forces in the chaos space clashed together, causing cracks to appear in the surrounding space. Devouring continuously, Longao and Xueming retreated. Ha ha! Ha 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 ha! Longao, I can't kill you now, and you can't kill me either. But I'll definitely not be able to come back and kill you in 100 years. Ha 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 ha! Turning around, Xueming used his space-time mystic skills to create a black hole and disappear. But Longao obviously wouldn't let him go. Without saying anything, he chased after him. Longao had the same space-time mystic skills. Longao also created a black hole, and the two of them disappeared without a trace. What happened at the Shenwu Peak spread across the entire chaotic space. Xueming had killed Imperial Ancestor Shenwu in a frenzy and even swallowed his primordial spirit. He was going to use the primordial spirit to break through and become an Imperial Ancestor. Longao was chasing after Xueming. It was hard to tell who was stronger between the two of them. However, all the Dao Vindication Imperial Ancestors were in a state of chaos because they knew that the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor had gone mad. They believed that the Blood Abyss Imperial Ancestor would go even crazier if he wanted to break through to the peak of the Righteous Dao Imperial Ancestor level. The laws had been completely disrupted by the Blood Underworld Imperial Ancestor and the Longao Imperial Ancestor. The primordial spirit of a Dao, confirming Imperial Ancestor, would not be completely destroyed. The worst thing that could happen to it was that it would enter the cycle of reincarnation. However, now that both of them had mastered space-time techniques, they could still destroy other Imperial Emperors. What did that mean? Right now, all of the Dao Corroboration Emperors were afraid of these two the most. They all went into hiding, as long as the two didn't come looking for them. Looking around and seeing that Xueming had completely disappeared, Longao raised his head and roared madly. "Xueming, even if you run to the ends of the earth, I will find you and make you suffer a fate worse than death." Because of him, Xueming had killed Shen Wu's friend right in front of him. His primordial spirit had even been swallowed by Xueming. He felt guilty and blamed himself. It was all because of him. At the Enchantress Palace, the Enchantress seemed to have suffered a great blow. She sat there quietly for 3 days and 3 nights without moving an inch. She looked like she had lost her soul. At that moment, Xueming's figure suddenly appeared. He looked at the Enchantress in front of him and laughed coldly. "You killed Shen Wu?" "Yes. As long as it's someone related to Longao, I won't let them go. Shen Wu is the first. Later, I will kill his family members and then go into seclusion to break through to the peak of the Dao Corroboration Emperor Ancestor level." Chapter 3448. She despised Xueming. Yao Ji knew what Xueming was thinking. With Longao's current strength, Xueming wouldn't be able to kill Longao, even if he exposed his true strength. Had she really made the right decision back then? She couldn't regret it. Yao Ji knew that if she regretted it, she would die a horrible death. "Do you need my help?" Before Yao Ji could react, Xueming pounced on her. A short while later, Yao Ji's panting could be heard from Yao Ji's palace. Only by doing this could Xueming be satisfied. A full 4 hours passed. Xueming left with a satisfied look on his face. The sinister Yao Ji was left behind. She coldly looked at the disappearing figure and sneered. "I will make you regret this." Longao went completely crazy. Although he knew that it was impossible to find traces of Xue Ming in the vast chaotic space, he did not choose to give up. The third day, when Longao received the news, he immediately rushed to Sky-Devouring Peak, but he was too late. Due to his guilt, Longao had only wanted to find traces of Xue Ming and kill him. However, he had not expected Xue Ming to be so crazy. Not only did he kill Shenwu, but he also destroyed Sky-Devouring Peak. Both the Sky-Devouring Great Emperor and the Young Master were destroyed. Endless anger, Longao stood quietly in Sky-Devouring Peak. After killing the Sky-Devouring Great Emperor and the Young Master, Xue Ming devoured the Young Master's primordial spirit and returned to Yao Ji's palace. Yao Ji walked over with a displeased expression. Yao Ji, what's wrong? Xue Ming, when I chose you to deal with Longao, you promised me the space-time ability. When are you going to give it to me? Xue Ming liked Yao Ji very much. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fought against Longao. However, he knew how powerful the space-time ability was. The more people who comprehended it, the more danger he would be in. You're not willing? Yao Ji, even if I help you, you might not be able to comprehend it. That's none of your business. If I can't comprehend it, then blame me. All right. Xue Ming thought about it. He was still very confident. After all, not everyone could comprehend space-time divine power throughout the entire primal chaos space. Other than him and Longao, no one else was able to comprehend the space-time divine art. Even the number one human Tao primitive emperor of the primal chaos dimension was unable to do so. He didn't believe that the enchantress could really comprehend space-time abilities. It was complete nonsense. 500 years passed in the blink of an eye. Longao had searched for Xue Ming for 500 years, yet he still hadn't found him. As time passed, the guilt and self-blame in his heart didn't diminish in the slightest. Because of him, the young master and Shenwu had both been killed by Xue Ming. Even their primordial spirits had been destroyed. On a mountain peak, Longao didn't continue his search. He knew very well that if nothing unexpected happened, Xue Ming must have devoured the primordial spirit of the Slayer God and started cultivating in seclusion. If Xue Ming really broke through to the peak of the primal chaos dimension, then he would be in an even more passive position. Xue Ming's situation was different from Dao Yuan's. Although Dao Yuan was a peak of the primal chaos dimension, he hadn't mastered the space-time divine power. He had only touched upon it slightly. However, Xue Ming's situation was different. Xue Ming had truly mastered the space-time divine power. Once Xue Ming broke through to the peak of the primal chaos dimension and mastered the space-time divine power, even Dao Yuan wouldn't have any chance of winning. Longao decided that he had to cultivate in seclusion as well. He had to strive to break through to the peak of the primal chaos dimension from the advanced primal chaos dimension in the shortest time possible. Only then could he face Xue Ming head-on. Xue Ming must kill. On a lonely mountain peak, Dao Yuan, who had been cultivating for 10,000 years, suddenly opened his eyes. After 10,000 years, he had finally created his most powerful technique. However, he still didn't gain anything from the space-time divine power. How could the primal chaos dimension emperor not know that other powers were nonsense? What the hell was the most powerful technique? If he could master the space-time divine power, then he would be truly invincible. It was one thing to think about it, but it was another thing to actually do it. Ever since he had broken through to the primal chaos dimension emperor realm, he had begun to cultivate the space-time divine power. Even Dao Yuan himself didn't know how many years he had spent comprehending it. 100 million years? 100 million years? Even Dao Yuan didn't know. However, no matter how many years he had comprehended, he couldn't truly master the space-time divine power. He sighed deeply and said helplessly, "There are three ultimate techniques in the space-time divine power: space-time advance, space-time prohibition, and space-time rewind. The weakest technique is space-time advance. I've only just touched upon it." Sigh. Just as Dao Yuan was about to go out and kill Longao, he suddenly heard a shocking piece of news that completely shocked Longao. Dao Yuan originally thought that Longao was the only one in the entire chaotic space who had mastered the space-time divine power. When he truly controlled Longao and dug out the secrets of the space-time divine power, perhaps he could truly master the space-time divine power and become a sovereign. A sovereign was the most powerful existence in the legends. But in the end, he had never imagined that it wasn't just Longao. Even Xue Ming, who had always been cautious, had concealed his strength and even mastered the space-time divine power. Dao Yuan was furious, but he was also pleasantly surprised. If he could control the two of them, he would definitely be able to get what he wanted from them. Dao Yuan, who had originally wanted to find the two of them, was completely dumbfounded. According to the legends, the two of them had fought 500 years ago and disappeared at the same time, never to appear again. If that was the case, where could he find them? Longao opened his eyes and felt very helpless. He had been cultivating for 500 years, but he still hadn't made a breakthrough. Every time he felt that he was about to make a breakthrough, he couldn't cross that threshold. It was really depressing to the extreme, especially the 9 revolution chaotic technique. He had already broken through to the 8th revolution and combined it with the space-time divine power to create his own unique space-time reincarnation. He believed that even if Xue Ming had comprehended the space-time divine power, he wouldn't be able to comprehend his own space-time reincarnation. The 8th revolution of the 9 revolution chaotic technique was already so powerful. It was hard to imagine what kind of heaven-defying divine power he would obtain if he could smoothly break through to the 9th revolution. However, breaking through to the last revolution was really too difficult. Thinking back, every time he had broken through to the 9 revolution chaotic technique, he had experienced life and death situations. Could it be that breaking through to the 9th revolution of the 9 revolution chaotic technique also required life and death situations? If that was really the case, it would be really troublesome. He couldn't just commit suicide. P.S. Please support Little Joe's new book, Cultivation Berserk Upgrade. Bookmark it. Little Joe, thanks. Chapter 3449. Regarding the 9 revolution chaos mantra, Longao was very helpless. Just the 8th revolution alone allowed him to comprehend space-time reincarnation. If he could break through to the 9th revolution, who knew what kind of heaven-defying divine ability he could comprehend? Even Longao was a little impatient. It was easy to think about it, but it was difficult to truly break through. What should he do? The current primal chaos space could be said to be undergoing drastic changes. Ever since Dao Yuan had come out of seclusion, he had been searching for Longao and Xue Ming with all his might. He hoped to find them as soon as possible and obtain the space-time divine ability from them. Once he obtained the space-time ability, he would have hope of breaking through the bottleneck and becoming a legendary Dao sovereign. In the end, Dao Yuan was more or less scared. He was really scared. This was because Dao Yuan was very worried. Both Longao and Xue Ming were high-level Dao, confirming imperial ancestors. He might be able to suppress them. Once, if either of them were to break through to the peak of the Dao corroboration realm from the advanced Dao corroboration realm, it was not hard to imagine that they would be able to control the space-time ability. Even he would not be a match for them. How could he not be afraid? It would be a lie if he said that he wasn't afraid. However, the two of them had gone into hiding to cultivate. Finding the two of them was easier said than done. Enchantress Palace. After devouring the 3 primordial spirits, Xue Ming immediately went into closed-door cultivation. According to Xue Ming, he would not come out of his closed-door cultivation until he reached the peak of the sovereign ancestor realm. Before Xue Ming had gone into seclusion, he had imparted the space-time mystic ability to the enchantress. In Xue Ming's opinion, even if he was willing to impart it, it would depend on whether the enchantress could truly comprehend it. In the entire primal chaos space, not everyone could truly comprehend a space-time divine ability. Among the countless people in the chaotic dimension, only Xue Ming and Longao had truly comprehended the space-time divine ability. Even Dao Yuan had only touched upon the space-time divine ability. From this, one could imagine how difficult it was to comprehend the space-time god art. 1,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Enchantress's body suddenly trembled. Subsequently, surprise was written all over her face. In the beginning, even the Enchantress herself wasn't completely sure if she could comprehend the space-time mystic ability. But in the end, in just over 1,000 years, she had successfully comprehended the space-time ability. Although it was only space-time advancement, it was still a very good thing for her. The space-time divine ability had a total of 3 killer moves: space-time advancement, space-time prohibition, and space-time reversal. Among the 3 killer moves, space-time advance was the weakest while space-time rewind was the strongest. He was pleasantly surprised. Yao Ji did not hesitate and immediately began to cultivate in seclusion. She did not expect her talent to be so heaven-defying. Space-time divine ability was the strongest power of the primal chaos space. Previously, he had spent over 1,000 years to comprehend time advancement, but this time, he had only spent a little over 100 years to comprehend space-time prohibition. What kind of concept was that? Not only that, after successfully comprehending the space-time prohibition, the Enchantress's cultivation base successfully broke through from the intermediate to the advanced Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. This was something that the Enchantress had never expected. Xueming, Longao, Dao Yuan. When I truly comprehend space-time rewind and break through to the peak to become an Emperor Ancestor, it will be the day I slaughter all of you. All of you, just you wait. The Enchantress was confident. Since it had only taken her a little over 100 years to comprehend space-time prohibition, it might only take her a few years to comprehend space-time rewind. The Enchantress was very confident that she might be able to break through to the peak to become an Emperor Ancestor very soon. In that case, she, who had mastered the space-time mystic ability, could dominate the entire primal chaos space. The Enchantress had never loved anyone, including Longao and Xueming. She only loved herself. Whether it was Longao or Xueming, they were just her stepping stones. In a secret chamber, Xueming's face was very gloomy. He had cultivated for over 1,000 years and still had not successfully broken through. He always felt that he was about to break through, but he was just a little bit away. He suddenly stood up and seemed to have thought of something. He said cruelly, "It seems that I need to devour more primordial spirits to successfully break through to the peak to become an Emperor Ancestor." Thinking of this, Xueming did not continue to cultivate in seclusion. Instead, he left the secret chamber and began to hunt crazily. However, the remaining Emperor Ancestors had all gone into hiding and could not be found at all. In order to break through to the peak to become an Emperor Ancestor, Xueming began to hunt down others in a frenzy. Emperor Ancestors, heavenly venerables, and even ordinary Emperor Ancestors, he would hunt them down mercilessly. Gradually, Xueming's madness shook the entire primal chaos space. Everyone was in danger and did not dare to be negligent. This was because no one knew who Xueming's next target would be. If it fell on their heads, they would definitely die. Not only was Xueming a high-level Emperor Ancestor, but he had also mastered space-time mystic ability. Unless Dao Yuan personally came, there was no doubt that no one in the entire primal chaos space was Xueming's opponent. Dao Yuan also received the news and immediately went to find Xueming. At the peak of a mountain, Dao Yuan finally stopped Xueming and said coldly, "Xueming, you've really hidden yourself well. You've actually mastered space-time mystic ability." Xueming's cultivation base had already reached the peak of the high-level Emperor Ancestor realm. He was only a little bit away from becoming a complete Emperor Ancestor. If he had not mastered space-time mystic ability, he might have been afraid of Dao Yuan. However, now that he had mastered space-time mystic ability, Xueming was not afraid at all. "Dao Yuan, I don't want to be your enemy. However, you'd better know your place. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Perhaps devouring your primordial spirit will help me break through the bottleneck." Ha, 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 ha. Xueming laughed crazily. The more confident Xueming was, the less confident Dao Yuan became. He had already begun to touch space-time. Of course, he knew how powerful space-time mystic ability was. The reason why Xue Ming dared to be so presumptuous was because he had mastered space-time mystic ability. Dao Yuan's face was gloomy. It was as ugly as it could get. Staring at Xue Ming in front of him, Dao Yuan finally said, "Xue Ming, since you're so confident, I'd like to experience the space-time mystic ability that you've mastered." Dao Yuan didn't have any intention of retreating. Instead, he was pleasantly surprised. He had only just touched upon space-time. If he wanted to continue comprehending space-time and fight Xue Ming, who had already comprehended space-time divine power, it would definitely be of great help. Because of this, Dao Yuan did not hesitate to issue a challenge. This was something that Xue Ming had not expected. Chapter 3450. Dao Yuan. Do you really think that you can suppress me? Xue Ming did not have full confidence that he could use the space-time ability to completely suppress his opponent. No matter what, the gap between their realms was obvious. Although there was only a difference of one realm between an advanced Emperor realm and a peak Emperor realm, the difference in strength was huge. Even Xue Ming did not have full confidence. However, before Xue Ming could speak, Dao Yuan snorted coldly. "You talk too much." Taking a step forward, Dao Yuan's figure appeared in the blink of an eye. He did not even give Xue Ming a chance to react as he attacked. They fought with all their might, and it was a battle of life and death. Both of them attacked each other with all their might. Dao Yuan used his own realm to suppress his opponent, while Xue Ming used his space-time ability to suppress his opponent. The gap between their realms and space-time abilities caused both of them to be on par. Boom! There was a loud explosion. The two of them separated. Dao Yuan looked at each other in shock. His face was filled with disbelief as he said, "This is the power of space-time prohibition and space-time reversal." Sigh. He sighed deeply. Although Dao Yuan did not want to admit it, he knew that with his current strength, he could not truly suppress Xue Ming, who had comprehended space-time abilities. "Dao Yuan, when I break through to the peak and become an Emperor realm, it will be the time to kill you. I hope you can live well." Ha 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 ha. Dao Yuan's face was gloomy because he knew that Xue Ming was not exaggerating at all. Xue Ming was only an advanced Emperor realm emperor, but he was already on par with him. It was hard to imagine that if Xue Ming broke through to the peak and became an Emperor realm emperor, he could definitely kill him. How could he resist? Comprehending space-time abilities did not depend on hard work and seclusion. It depended on talent and luck. Otherwise, Longao and Xue Ming would not have been able to comprehend space-time abilities. Dao Yuan knew that if he could not suppress Xue Ming, it would be even more impossible for him to kill Longao. He regretted it. If he had killed Longao earlier, he would not be in this situation today. After all, Longao was only an intermediate Emperor realm emperor. However, no matter what he said, it was already too late. "Goodbye. I won't see you out." Looking at Dao Yuan, who had turned to leave, Xue Ming snorted coldly. Suddenly, he laughed out loud and said, "In 3 months, I will officially break through to the peak and become an Emperor realm emperor. By then, Longao, Dao Yuan, you will all die." In the other place, Demon Palace. The Enchantress had also reached a critical juncture. She would also be able to comprehend the space-time divine ability in 3 months. She would also be able to smoothly break through to the peak of the Dao Sovereign Ancestor realm. Xue Ming, and Xue Ming, Dao Xue Ming, Xue. After failing to find Xue Ming, Longao chose to cultivate in seclusion. He also hoped that his cultivation base could successfully break through to the peak of the Sovereign Ancestor realm. Xue. Emperor Xue. And Xue Emperor Xue Emperor Xue. If he wanted to kill Xue Ming without any mistakes, he would have to break through to the peak and become a sovereign ancestor. It wasn't something that could be done just by thinking about it. Inside the chaotic Dantian, Anyone who had devoured the primordial spirit of a Tao-confirming imperial ancestor had become a Tao-confirming imperial ancestor, including Qin Shuangshuang. However, Longao was not too surprised. Even someone with mediocre talent could successfully break through to the Tao corroboration realm in a very short time by devouring the primordial spirit of a Tao corroboration emperor. Brother Long, are there still no signs of a breakthrough? Qin Shuangshuang and the others were very worried. Of course, they knew that Xue Ming had killed Xin Wu and the young master. Otherwise, Longao would not have cultivated so crazily in order to break through to the peak of the sovereign ancestor realm. Longao forced a smile and helplessly sighed. I don't know why, but I can always feel that I can break through at any time, but I can't take that step. Brother Long, why don't we help you? No. How could Longao not know what everyone was thinking? If he was not mistaken, Qin Shuangshuang and the others wanted to use their primordial spirits to help him. Perhaps they would have a chance to break through. However, Longao did not even think about it and directly refused. Then what should we do now? Longao lowered his head and pondered. After thinking for a long time, he could not think of a reason. It was really difficult to break through. What should he do? During this period, the chaotic space was very chaotic because Xue Ming had wantonly killed Tao corroboration realm cultivators. Everyone was in danger and began to hide, afraid that Xue Ming would find them. Longao, who could not break through, did not continue to cultivate in seclusion. He was ready to come out and look for a chance to break through. However, as soon as he came out, he felt that something was wrong with the chaotic space. No matter where he went, it was dead silent. There was no one at all. It would be a lie to say that there was nothing fishy. Longao's speed soared to the extreme, but he still could not see anyone. After walking for a full 3 months, Longao finally found a hidden place. There was a Tao corroboration realm cultivator inside, trembling in fear as he cultivated. You are Imperial Ancestor Longao? When he saw Longao, the man seemed very surprised and his body trembled. What happened in the chaotic space? The Tao corroboration realm cultivator did not dare to hide anything. According to the rumors, Imperial Ancestor Longao could defeat Imperial Ancestor Xue Ming. However, after so many years, Imperial Ancestor Longao had completely disappeared and was never seen again. Because of this man had never imagined that he would meet the legendary Imperial Ancestor Longao at this time. How could he not be surprised? In this man's opinion, as long as Imperial Ancestor Longao was willing, he could help them kill Imperial Ancestor Xue Ming. This way, they would be able to leave. Unless it was a last resort, no one would be willing to hide in this damn place and cultivate. Imperial Ancestor Xue Ming was too powerful. No one was a match for him. In the entire chaotic space, only 2 people could do it. One was Imperial Ancestor Tao Origin, and the other was Imperial Ancestor Longao. However, Imperial Ancestor Tao Origin had not appeared for many years. The only hope was Imperial Ancestor Longao. Senior Longao, I beg you to kill Xue Ming. Otherwise, no one in the chaotic space would dare to show their faces. Imperial Ancestor Xue Ming is a madman now. He is killing Tao corroboration realm cultivators and devouring their primordial spirits. How could Longao not know what Xue Ming meant? If he was not mistaken, Xue Ming was devouring the primordial spirits of Tao corroboration realm cultivators in such a frenzy because he wanted to break through to the high-level Tao corroboration realm and advance to the peak Tao corroboration realm. In order to break through, Xue Ming was willing to do anything. Chapter 34:51. After finding out the truth, Longao left immediately. He was almost certain that Xue Ming had yet to break through to the pinnacle of the sovereign ancestor realm. As long as he did not break through, he would have the chance to kill him. Chaos space, the initially dead and silent chaos space, started to recover slowly because of Longao's appearance. After all, in the entire chaos space, only sovereign ancestor Daoyuan and Longao could deal with Xueming. Just as expected, ever since Longao appeared, Xueming did not continue his massacre. Was that really the case? The reason why Xueming did not continue was because he was cultivating in seclusion. He wanted to break through the final bottleneck and reach the pinnacle of the sovereign ancestor realm. Once he broke through, everyone knew what it meant. The more this was the case, the more anxious Longao was. He had to find Xueming before he broke through and kill him completely. But the chaos space was boundless. Who knew where Xueming was cultivating in seclusion and where he should go to look for him? Longao announced that anyone who could inform him of Xueming's whereabouts would be rewarded handsomely. Actually, there was no need for Longao to say anything. Everyone in the chaos space hated Xueming to the core. After all, no one knew when Xueming would kill and harm them again. But thankfully, Longao was searching for Xueming's whereabouts. Given the strength of sovereign ancestor Longao, he would definitely kill Xueming the moment he found him. Everyone was searching for traces of sovereign ancestor Xueming. However, it was as though Xueming had disappeared from the face of the earth. Could it be that sovereign ancestor Xueming was afraid? Just as Longao was searching for Xueming with all his might, Demon Concubine Palace. Ha 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 ha. Demon Concubine laughed out maniacally. Even though her cultivation base had yet to break through to the pinnacle of the sovereign ancestor realm, she was already at the pinnacle of the high-level sovereign ancestor realm. At the same time, she had comprehended the 3 killing moves of the space-time mystic skill. Even so, Demon Concubine was extremely excited. As long as she could comprehend the space-time mystic skill, she would have a fighting chance even against sovereign ancestor Dao Yuan. Xueming, who was cultivating in seclusion at the Demon Concubine Palace as well, was pleasantly surprised. Yao Ji, you've comprehended the space-time divine ability? Yao Ji nodded. She wanted to kill Xueming immediately, but she still smiled and said, "It's all thanks to you this time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to comprehend the space-time divine ability so quickly." The enchantress knew very well that before she had the absolute strength to kill the other party, it was better for her to endure. Otherwise, the gains would not make up for the losses. They might even go for wool and come home shorn. Enchantress wouldn't fight a battle she wasn't confident in. As for Xueming, after confirming that the enchantress had truly comprehended the space-time divine ability, his mind was in complete chaos. Even he had never expected the enchantress to be able to successfully comprehend the space-time divine ability in such a short period of time. Is this true? Only after experiencing it himself did Xueming truly understand how difficult it was to comprehend space-time abilities. It was as difficult as ascending to heaven. Was it a good thing or a bad thing for him that Yao Ji had comprehended space-time mystic abilities? At the moment, Xueming felt a little regretful. If he had known that Yao Ji would be able to comprehend space-time mystic abilities, he wouldn't have imparted them to her. But now, it was too late for regrets. However, it had already happened. Xueming laughed out loud and said, "You have comprehended it well. Now that you have successfully comprehended space-time mystic abilities, we can definitely kill the Emperor Dao Yuan if we join forces." Why? The enchantress was very curious. Even if the two of them joined forces, the chances of killing the Emperor Dao Yuan were very high. However, she still couldn't figure out why Xueming would do this. After all, the Emperor Dao Yuan was a peak Emperor Dao. His strength was obvious. It wouldn't be easy to kill him. The enchantress, you and I are in the same situation. Although we have successfully comprehended space-time mystic abilities, it will be difficult for us to break through. I originally thought that I would definitely break through to the peak Emperor Dao within 3 months. However, I was overthinking it. 3 months? The enchantress was very surprised. She didn't intend to tell Xueming, but after hearing this, she thought for a moment and said, "Xueming, to be honest, after I comprehended space-time mystic abilities, I also had the same feeling. I thought that I would be able to break through to the peak Emperor Dao within 3 months. However, the result?" The enchantress sighed deeply. Although she didn't finish her sentence, her meaning was very clear. The two of them were in the same situation. They wouldn't believe that there wasn't something fishy going on. The enchantress and Xue Ming looked at each other. They could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. In the end, Xue Ming said, "If we want to break through, it seems like we have to kill the Emperor Dao Yuan to successfully reach the peak Emperor Dao." The enchantress didn't want to agree at first, but she seemed to have thought of something and finally nodded. The enchantress, "I know what you're worried about. Although the Emperor Dao Yuan is a peak Emperor Dao, he has only just touched space-time. If we join forces and use space-time mystic abilities at the same time, the chances of killing him will be very high. Then we have to be careful." Xue Ming laughed mischievously and said, "The enchantress." He felt disgusted and disgusted. However, in order to achieve his great goal, he could only choose to endure. The next thing he knew, the two of them had sex again. Gradually, Longao found out that Xue Ming was in the Enchantress Palace. He didn't even think about it and directly attacked the Enchantress Palace. The Enchantress and Xue Ming, who had just been having sex, saw Longao suddenly arrive. Xue Ming sneered and said, "Longao, you really don't know anything. How dare you come here alone? Today, I will kill you." "You? Ha 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 ha." As if he had heard the funniest thing in the world, Xue Ming laughed crazily. Looking at the enchantress beside him, he sneered and said, "Longao, let me tell you some bad news. The enchantress has successfully comprehended space-time mystic abilities." When he heard that, Longao's heart sank. What he was afraid of was really happening. He wasn't afraid of the peak Emperor Dao Yuan, but he was very afraid of someone comprehending space-time mystic abilities. He had also comprehended space-time mystic abilities, so of course he knew how heaven-defying they were. With a gloomy expression, Longao looked at the enchantress beside Xue Ming. He had never thought that the enchantress would be able to comprehend space-time mystic abilities in such a short amount of time. She had even successfully broken through to the peak Emperor Dao Yuan. He had to admit that the enchantress's talent and potential were terrifying. In time, the enchantress might break through to the peak Emperor Dao Yuan faster than he and Xue Ming. Chapter 3452. It was 1 against 2. Even Longao was not completely confident. If it was an ordinary high-level Dao confirming Imperial Ancestor, it would be fine. However, the current situation was very troublesome. The reason, whether it was Xue Ming or the Enchantress, not only were they high-level Dao confirming Imperial Ancestors, but they had also comprehended space-time superpower. If it were anyone else, they would have turned around and left already. Except for Longao. Not only would he not leave, but he was also prepared to try. Just as Xue Ming seemed to want to say something, Longao did not waste any more time. He took a step forward and rushed out. Before he arrived, his fist arrived first. Space-time rewind. The Enchantress and Xue Ming were shocked. After all, Longao's strength was obvious. Even if they joined forces, they could not guarantee that they could kill him. The two exchanged a look. They attacked at the same time. Space-time rewind. Space-time prohibition. The Enchantress and Xue Ming used space-time superpower at the same time. In fact, all three of them had comprehended space-time superpower. It was not easy to use space-time superpower to suppress each other. However, they did not know that Longao had successfully broken through the 8th transformation of the 9 transformation chaos formula and combined it with space-time superpower to comprehend the most powerful move, space-time reincarnation. Using space-time reincarnation, one could imagine how crazy it was. This was also the real reason why Longao dared to fight two people at the same time. The three of them used space-time superpower at the same time, and the space around them began to distort. Under this kind of battle, even high-level Dao, confirming Imperial Ancestors, would die, without a doubt, if they were sucked into space-time, let alone ordinary Dao, confirming Imperial Ancestors. The space-time superpower was layered, and its power had reached an extremely terrifying level. Dao Yuan's figure appeared. Looking at the battle in front of him, he was very surprised. His face was full of shock. Even he did not dare to approach casually. The heavens are helping me. Dao Yuan immediately began to comprehend. He had only comprehended the surface of space-time superpower. It was almost impossible to rely on one's own comprehension to comprehend the 3 killer moves of the space-time god art. But now, this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as he continued to comprehend, he might be able to comprehend space-time superpower. At this moment, the 4 supreme experts of the chaos space were all gathered in the Enchantress Palace. One of them was a peak stage Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, while the other 3 were high-level Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. Any one of them could make the entire Chaos realm tremble with a stomp of their feet. Longao and the Enchantress were already aware of Dao Yuan's arrival. However, the battle was extremely terrifying. The slightest bit of distraction would cause one to fall into a state of eternal damnation. All 3 of them had mastered space-time abilities. Once the other party seized the opportunity, it would not be the so-called primordial spirit entering the cycle of reincarnation, but the true destruction of the primordial spirit. It would be a lie to say that he was not afraid. Boom! 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 Dragon roars continuously resounded throughout the entire Enchantress Palace. Crack! Longao and the other 2's bodies were completely separated. The 3's faces were somewhat pale, but strictly speaking, Longao had actually lost this battle. Ha! Longao, I have to admit that you are indeed strong. If we were to fight one-on-one, be it me or the Enchantress, neither of us would be a match for you. But if we were to join forces, Longao, do you really think that you can beat us? Ha! Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Laughing maniacally, Xueming chose to ignore Dao Yuan. In his opinion, Dao Yuan, who was a peak stage Dao confirming Emperor Ancestor, couldn't even compare to Longao, who had comprehended space-time superpower. What the 2 of them did not know was that the space-time superpower that Longao had just used was not the true space-time reincarnation. That was his strongest move. If that were the case, he should be able to fight to a draw with the 2 of them. But if he wanted to kill them, that would be impossible. Unless he could make a breakthrough in his cultivation state and break through from a high-level Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor, to a peak stage Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. If that were the case, even if Xueming and the Enchantress were to join forces, they would not be a match for him. Cough, cough. The 3 of you. I'm not disturbing you, am I? Even though his face was filled with awkwardness, Dao Yuan's heart was filled with rage. Once upon a time, he was hailed as the #1 being in the chaos space. Even Xueming had to be respectful when he saw him, let alone Longao and the Enchantress. But now, the 3 of them had comprehended all of their space-time superpower. Even though they were high-level Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestors, they were not afraid of him in the least bit. How could he not be angry? But what could he do even if he was angry? Even if it were a one-on-one fight, he would not be able to defeat any of them, let alone the 3 of them. As for the enlightenment he had just gained, it wasn't as though he had gained nothing. Finally, he had comprehended the space-time superpower that the 3 of them had unleashed. Comprehending the space-time superpower alone was of no use at all. He had to comprehend the other 2 killing moves as well, the space-time seal and space-time rewind. Otherwise, everything else would be nonsense. But comprehending the space-time seal and space-time rewind was easier said than done. Unless he could comprehend them in the midst of the battle between the 3 of them for 100 years, he might be able to comprehend them all. But was that even possible? That was way too ridiculous. Humph! Xueming snorted coldly. He did not have any good feelings towards Dao Yuan. Before this, he had been suppressing his anger and bowing down to Dao Yuan. He was afraid that Dao Yuan would kill him. After all, he had not truly comprehended the space-time superpower back then. If he had provoked Dao Yuan, he would have been killed. But now he did not have to bow down to Dao Yuan anymore because he was already very powerful. Even if he faced Dao Yuan, he could still fight him. Although he could not kill Dao Yuan could not kill him either. Xueming even wanted to try and see if he and Yao Ji could defeat Dao Yuan if they joined forces. If they could devour Dao Yuan or Long Ao's primordial spirit, they might be able to break through smoothly and become a peak Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. Xueming knew very well what it meant to break through to the peak Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor level with the help of the space-time superpower. Not only would he become the most powerful existence in the chaotic space, but he might even be able to break through the bottleneck and become a legendary dominator. Becoming a dominator was the true pinnacle of the martial path. Xueming already knew that the space-time superpower was an opportunity to break through and become a dominator. This was the real reason why Dao Yuan had not been able to break through the bottleneck for so many years. Dao Yuan, I don't have time to waste with you now. Get lost. Get lost? Dao Yuan was not the only one who was stunned. Even Long Ao was stunned. Although Dao Yuan had not comprehended the space-time superpower, he was a true peak Dao, confirming Emperor Ancestor. Wasn't Xueming worried that Dao Yuan would join forces with him? Dao Yuan was completely enraged. He said murderously, "Xueming, do you really think that you can kill me?" Chapter 3453. Why don't we try? Dao Yuan's heart skipped a beat. He had just witnessed how terrifying Xueming and the Enchantress were. If the two of them joined forces, he was no match for them. Xueming snorted again when Dao Yuan remained silent. He was pleased to see Dao Yuan behaving this way in front of him. Long Ao did not care. He did not even give the two of them a chance to speak. He took a step forward and charged at them again. Space-time rewind. The three of them fought again and used their space-time superpowers. The space around them was distorted again. It was terrifying. Dao Yuan was delighted when he saw the three of them continue to fight and use their space-time superpowers. He did not hesitate and continued to comprehend. His strongest move, space-time transmigration. When the two of them were not paying attention, Long Ao finally used space-time transmigration. The terrifying space-time transmigration began to suppress the two of them. Under the space-time transmigration, both Xueming and the Enchantress were shocked to find that the space-time superpowers they had comprehended were not working. What was going on? The two of them were completely dumbfounded. As they resisted Long Ao, they tried to figure out what was going on. Not only the two of them, but even Dao Yuan was a little stunned, because he had never thought that Long Ao would be able to fight back under the suppression of the two of them. He could even suppress one of them. He was so powerful. Once Long Ao's cultivation broke through to the peak and became an imperial ancestor, even Dao Yuan would be killed instantly. Dao Yuan could not help but shudder at the thought. Not only Long Ao, but the other two of them felt the same. No matter who it was, as long as they could break through to the peak and become an imperial ancestor, they could kill him instantly with space-time superpowers. It would be a lie if he said he was not afraid. Xueming, what kind of power is this? How would I know? When Long Ao used space-time transmigration, the god of war mirror appeared in his right hand, and he began to use sword chi. Poof! The Enchantress finally could not resist the powerful space-time transmigration and was injured by Long Ao's sword chi. Fortunately, Xueming had appeared in time to help. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. With a backhand slash, Xueming was also heavily injured. Xueming and Yao Ji looked at each other and saw the deep fear in each other's eyes. How could they dare to continue fighting? They turned around and left. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had disappeared without a trace. You want to leave? How could Long Ao let the two of them go, especially after severely injuring them? Long Ao, dragging your sister, get the hell away from me. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Long Ao didn't have a good impression of Dao Yuan. If he wasn't in a hurry to kill the two of them, he might have already dealt with Dao Yuan. Dao Yuan's face darkened as he watched Long Ao chase after Xueming. He recalled how Xueming had humiliated him earlier. His expression was as ugly as it could get. In the end, it was because he hadn't comprehended the space-time ability. Otherwise, Would the three of them dare to humiliate him like this? Just as Longao chased after them. However, Xueming and Yao Ji had returned. Looking at Dao Yuan before them, their faces were filled with greed and bloodlust. What do you want? Dao Yuan was no fool. He seemed to have guessed the intentions of Yao Ji and Xueming. Even though the two of them had comprehended the space-time ability, they were still high-level Dao Emperor ancestors. They hadn't reached the pinnacle yet. Dao Yuan, only by killing you and devouring your essence spirit can we break through successfully. Ha 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 ha! Xueming, why are you talking so much nonsense with him? Hurry up and do it! Yao Ji was afraid that Longao would return. Even though the two of them had joined forces, they were still severely injured by Longao. Even though they had experienced it personally, they still found it hard to believe. Up until now, the two of them still didn't know how Longao had done it. In the end, it was because Longao had shown weakness at the start that they let down their guard. Then, he used the space-time reincarnation to kill them in a single blow. The two of them had truly witnessed Longao's strength. Even though they didn't want to believe it, the truth was right before their eyes. Even if they had comprehended the space-time ability and joined forces, they still wouldn't be a match for Longao. That was an undeniable fact. Fortunately, they ran fast just now. Otherwise, they might really be killed by Longao. The more they thought about it, the more scared they became. The more they thought about it, the more terrified they became. Be it Xueming or Yao Ji, they were both extremely afraid of death. In the end, the two of them were truly afraid. They knew that if they wanted to kill Longao, they couldn't do it right now. They had to break through to the pinnacle of Dao Emperor Ancestor as soon as possible. If that was the case, it would be easy for them to kill Longao if they joined forces. Normally, who knew how long it would take to break through? Previously, they had all sensed that they would definitely break through within 3 months. But what was the result? Not to mention 3 months. Even if it were 3 years, 30 years, or even 300 years, they wouldn't know. As for the reason, they didn't know at all. No matter how they thought about it, the two of them were still prepared to devour Dao Yuan's essence spirit. Who knew? They might even be able to break through to the pinnacle of Dao Emperor Ancestor level. Xueming knew what Yao Ji meant. One could never be too careful. If Longao were to return at this time, forget about killing Dao Yuan. It was unknown if Dao Yuan's essence spirit could even survive after devouring Longao's essence spirit. They had to end this quickly. They had to kill Dao Yuan as soon as possible. At the thought of this, Yao Ji and Xueming did not waste any more time and started attacking Dao Yuan from both sides. Ha! If this were before, I might have been wary of the two of you. But now that you're severely injured, you want to kill me? Ha! Ha ha! Boom! 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 Yao Ji and Xueming activated their space-time reincarnation immediately. It was practically impossible for them to suppress the other party with just their strength and cultivation states. The only thing they had was the space-time mystic skills that they had comprehended. Dao Yuan did not fight to the death either. After all, he had only just comprehended the space-time forward. He knew nothing about the space-time restriction and space-time reversal. But it was clear that this battle had more advantages than disadvantages for Dao Yuan. Using this opportunity, Dao Yuan could continue comprehending the space-time restriction. Longao, who was chasing after them, made use of his terrifying spiritual consciousness to cover the entire area and lock onto the two of them. But thinking about it was one thing, and actually doing it was another. Longao's face was solemn as well. Every day that he did not kill the two of them was a day that he would feel guilty. Furthermore, if he did not remove the roots of the weeds, they would grow back again. The two of them were way too strong. Once they broke through to the pinnacle of Dao Emperor Ancestor level, the consequences would be unimaginable. Chapter 3454. In the chaotic space, the winds and clouds were changing. Everyone was watching to see who would have the last laugh. It was Longao who would kill Yao Ji and Xueming. Both of them would join forces to kill Longao. No one would know until the very end. But because of what had happened to Xueming, many people hoped that Longao would be able to kill both of them. Yao Ji, Xueming, no matter where you run to, Longao, will definitely kill both of you. Longao did not continue to chase after them, because he knew very well that if the two of them deliberately hid, it would not be an easy task for him to lock onto their positions. He would head back to Yao Ji Palace to take a look. Yao Ji Palace. The battle between the three of them had reached its climax. However, Yao Ji and Xueming had still underestimated Dao Yuan's strength. Dao Yuan had spent countless years. Even though he had not managed to comprehend the space-time mystic skill, he had managed to comprehend his strongest move. The suppression of cultivation state allowed Dao Yuan to deal with it. Both of you, I won't fight with you anymore. Thank you for your help. I believe that it won't be long before Dao Yuan, will be able to comprehend the space-time mystic skill as well. Ha! Ha ha! Ha ha! Along with his laughter, Dao Yuan disappeared swiftly. Looking at the disappearing figure, Yao Ji and Xueming's faces were grim. This battle, they had not expected that even with both of them joining forces, they would not be able to kill the other party. This was unbelievable. Yao Ji, what should we do now? If they could not kill Dao Yuan, they would not be able to devour Dao Yuan's essence spirit. If that were the case, it would not be easy for them to break through. As long as they did not break through to the pinnacle of Dao, sovereign ancestor realm, even if they were to join forces, they would not be a match for Longao. If they were to continue fighting against Longao, their lives would be uncertain. Just as Yao Ji was about to speak, the situation changed. The space-time reincarnation enveloped both of them. Before they could even react, Longao's attack had already arrived. By the time Longao appeared, both of them were stumped. Plop! He viciously kicked Xueming and Yao Ji. Their bodies were like kites with their strings cut. They were sent flying, and the air was filled with blood. How despicable! You actually dared to sneak attack us. He sneered. Longao's face was full of sarcasm as he said, "Even if it's a head-on confrontation, are you a match for me?" Longao had full confidence in his space-time samsara. Even if the two of them were at their peak, Zhangxian would not fear them, let alone the two of them in their current state. Longao was also a little surprised that his strongest move had not killed the two of them. "Let's go. You want to leave?" Just as Longao was about to make his move, blood mist suddenly erupted from both Yao Ji and Xueming's bodies. Using the blood escape technique, both of them disappeared. Longao was also a little dumbfounded. He also did not expect that the two of them would use blood escape to escape. No matter what, the price of using the blood escape art was too high for the two of them. At this time, as long as he could find the two of them, killing them would be as easy as flipping his hand. In fact, it wasn't just him. He believed that any random person would be able to deal with the two of them easily. It seemed that the two of them were going all out. The two high-level Dao confirming Imperial ancestors had used blood escape and space-time superpower to escape. Zhangxian could not find them at all, so he could only lose this opportunity. However, this time, he had severely injured the two of them. He believed that within 10,000 years, they would not be able to recover from their injuries, let alone break through. Even so, Longao still wanted to try. He immediately announced this to the entire chaotic space, hoping to borrow everyone's strength to find the two of them. The entire chaotic space was in an uproar. Many people did not expect that in such a short time, Imperial ancestor Longao had severely injured Imperial ancestor Xueming and Imperial ancestor Yao Ji. Many people were also unwilling to believe it, but the truth was in front of them. If the two of them had not been severely injured, Imperial ancestor Longao would not have said this. Of course, no one would disagree. What Xueming had done before was too much. He had continuously slaughtered Dao, proving martialous, and devoured their primordial spirits in an attempt to break through his own limits and reach the legendary peak of Dao, proving Imperial ancestor. Under such circumstances, everyone was eager to find the two of them immediately. However, among everyone, the main reason why 99% of them were working so hard was because they were selfish. After all, Yao Ji and Xue Ming were now severely injured. Any one of them could easily kill the two of them. If the two high-level Dao, confirming imperial ancestors who had mastered space-time superpower could be forced to reveal their secrets, it would be a good thing for Dao confirming cultivators. As for devouring their primordial spirits, it was almost impossible unless one could master space-time superpower. However, Xue Ming and Yao Ji seemed to have disappeared from the world. Everyone was looking for them, but they could not find any trace of them. Everyone was anxious, but Longao was even more anxious. Dao Yuan didn't really cultivate in seclusion. Instead, he constantly practiced his space-time divine power. Even he didn't expect that after the previous battle and the enlightenment he gained from the battle between the three of them, not only would he successfully perfect space-time advancement, but he would also comprehend space-time restriction in just 3 days. What did this mean? Even Dao Yuan was completely dumbfounded. He thought that if he could successfully comprehend space-time prohibition in a few hundred years, or even 10,000 years, it would be very good. Only 3 days? Overjoyed, Dao Yuan immediately continued to comprehend the space-time divine ability. According to his guess, since he could comprehend the space-time restriction in 3 days, it wouldn't take long for him to comprehend the space-time retreat. But the result? After 300 years, Dao Yuan could not even touch space-time retreat, let alone comprehend it. This time, Dao Yuan was once again dumbfounded. What was going on? Why did it only take 3 days to comprehend space-time prohibition, but it took him 300 years to comprehend space-time retreat, but he could not even touch it? It was unbelievable. For 300 years, everyone in the chaotic space was looking for Yao Ji and Xue Ming. However, no matter how hard they searched, they could not find them. Many people began to slowly give up. However, the only person who did not give up was Longao. For so many years, Longao had not cultivated in seclusion. Instead, he walked around the chaotic space. If he wanted to find them, he could only rely on luck. However, the longer he delayed, the more disadvantageous it was for him. With enough time, Yao Ji and Xue Ming could recover from their injuries at any time. P.S. Please support Little Joe's new book, Cultivation Rampage Upgrade. Chapter 3455. In the Chaotic Space. In the Enchantress Palace. The Enchantress and Xue Ming had been cultivating in the Enchantress Palace and had never left. Both of them were severely injured. No matter where they hid, they could be found. As the saying went, the most dangerous place was the safest place. Both of them hid in the Enchantress Palace. No one would have thought that they would be hiding in the Enchantress Palace. Even Longao did not expect that the two of them would take this step. After all, it was too risky. If they did not say anything, they would be doomed. They had no choice. Both of them were furious. But what could they do? Longao was too strong. He was even stronger than the Dao Yuan imperial ancestor. Especially Longao's last move. It was even more incomparably powerful, almost completely killing the two of them. In the underground cave of the Enchantress Palace. Besides the Enchantress and Xue Ming, no one else knew about the secret chamber. There was no one in the Enchantress Palace. After what happened that year, everyone in the Enchantress Palace had left. She took a deep breath. The Enchantress suddenly opened her eyes. Her face was full of anger. She said murderously, "I will settle this with Longao. Blood for blood. Blood for blood." Xue Ming also opened his eyes. He said helplessly, "The Enchantress, I know you are not convinced, but we have to recognize the truth. With Longao's current strength, we are no match for him." The Enchantress did not say anything. She just clenched her fists. She sighed deeply. Xue Ming was not convinced either. But what could he do? Facing such a powerful Longao, they had no way at all. The Enchantress, there are only 2 ways to kill Longao. The first way is for both of us to break through to the peak and become imperial ancestors. Then we can kill Longao instantly if we work together. Go on. The enchantress did not want to hear the first way. It was complete nonsense. It was difficult to break through to the peak and become imperial ancestors. In the entire chaotic space, there were dozens of imperial ancestors. But only the Daoyuan imperial ancestor had broken through to the peak and become imperial ancestors. He was truly helpless. Who knew how long it would take for them to break through to the peak of the Dao sovereign ancestor realm? 100 million years? 100 billion thoughts? Or 1 trillion years? Naturally, Xueming knew that it would be difficult for him and Yao Ji to break through to the peak of the Dao sovereign ancestor realm. Enchantress, when I had just broken through to the Dao validation realm, I had inadvertently obtained a chaos secret art. What secret technique? Enchantress asked curiously. A secret technique that Xueming hadn't even told him about. It wasn't hard to imagine what it meant. Yin-yang complement. Yin-yang complement. Xueming, you should know that there are many people who know about the yin-yang complement secret technique in the chaos dimension, including the chaos realm and the various other realms. Yin and yang complement. In the various major planes, including the chaos realm, although this secret technique was a little special, many people knew about it. Was Xueming joking? That was ridiculous. Xueming smiled and said, the yin-yang complement secret technique that I obtained is different from the others. You and I can cultivate it at the same time. When the time comes, we will merge and share the same body. One side will be me, and the other side will be you. Our strength will increase by dozens of times. At that time, whether it's Dao Yuan or Longao, they will definitely die if they encounter us. Ha! Since it's so powerful, let's not waste any time and start cultivating immediately. Xueming sighed deeply and said helplessly, although this secret technique is extremely powerful, it has a flaw. We can't be separated in the future. We can't even have sex. As long as we can dominate the chaos dimension and kill Longao and Dao Yuan, it doesn't matter. Even if we can't do it, we can find other men and women to have fun with. What do you think? All right, let's start cultivating then. In order to reach the so-called highest level, the two of them were willing to do anything. This was something that Longao had never expected. At this moment, Longao was still searching for Yao Ji and Xueming's whereabouts. However, he would never have thought that Yao Ji and Xueming would actually be in Yao Ji Palace. At the peak of a mountain in the chaos dimension, Yi Wuxin looked at Longao, who had suddenly appeared, and said helplessly, Longao, I've heard about what happened between you, Yao Ji, and Xueming. Longao nodded. He truly treated Yi Wuxin as a friend. Back when he was still a Dao-confirming great emperor, he had been friends with Yi Wuxin. They had gone through life and death together and had experienced too many trials and tribulations. In order not to implicate Yi Wuxin in his rebirth, Longao had not sought out his own friend. Longao sighed deeply. Whenever he thought of his young master's death, he still felt very guilty and remorseful. Yi Wuxin knew very well what Longao was thinking. He smiled and said, back then, you were already very talented and became a Dao-confirming great emperor. Now, you have recovered your strength quickly. After so many years, you have been stuck at this bottleneck and have been unable to break through. I really can't help you. With a deep sigh, Yi Wuxin felt very helpless, but even more so, he was powerless because he knew very well that with his current strength, he was unable to help his friend at all. Not only could he not help, but he would also implicate Yi Wuxin. Yi Wuxin, why are you looking for me this time? Longao and Yi Wuxin had always called each other by their names. However, this did not mean that they were not on good terms. Longao clearly did not want to dwell on this issue. He had already lost his young master as a friend, but he did not want to lose Yi Wuxin. Absolutely not. Longao, your cultivation has successfully broken through to the high-level Dao, confirming great emperor. According to my guess, if there are no accidents, even if you're very talented, breaking through to the peak of the Dao, confirming great emperor is not something you can do in a short time. He nodded. What Yi Wuxin said was also what Longao felt the most helpless about. Whether it was him, Yao Ji, or Xue Ming. They were all trying their best to break through to the final stage because they both knew that under the premise that they could control space-time together, whoever broke through to the peak of the Tao confirming Great Emperor first would have the real initiative. The more this was the case, the more curious Longao was. Yi Wuxin seemed to be implying something. He smiled and said, "Boy, if you have something to say, just say it. Why beat around the bush? When did you learn to be so polite?" Yi Wuxin's expression was very serious. He said, "Longao, as everyone knows, there were only 17 Tao confirming Great Emperor in the chaotic space. Including you, there are only 18. Longao nodded. Of course, he knew what Yi Wuxin was talking about. There was no doubt about it. Everyone knew it very well. The 17 Tao, confirming Great Emperor, occupied the entire chaotic space. He was an exception. If he had not broken through so quickly, he believed that many Tao confirming Great Emperor would have stopped him. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.